Chapter 740. No one expected the exploration of the southern blood pool to turn out like this. Lu Chai and the others were elated when they returned to Heaven River City. They had made a huge profit. On the other hand, Li Xing and the other players from the other servers were furious. They couldn't take it lying down after being tricked so miserably by the original players. However, the main city was a safe zone. Players could not fight with each other. They could not even attack when they saw the original players walking past them. This made them feel aggrieved. Hence, they set their sights on the blood tiger in the southern blood pool. If we can't deal with the original players, we can take it out on you. At this moment, the players from the European server, the Infernal server, and the Asian server joined forces. After organizing their people, they set off toward the blood pool in a mighty manner. Apart from the original players and the non-server players who did not want to be associated with them, almost all the players in Heaven Reverse City came out in full force. Perhaps the blood tiger did not expect his actions to infuriate the players and bring disaster upon himself. From the players' point of view, whether they died or not was secondary. However, giving away spiritual materials to the original players and letting them die was intolerable. This was too unfair. They wanted to get hammered. Lu Chai and the others did not stop them. After all, they could not stop them even if they wanted to. They treated it as a one-time deal. After all, they had earned nearly 10,000 bloodstones. As for the blood tiger's fate, they could not be bothered. 3 days later, a huge battle broke out in the southern blood pool area. The European servers Demigod Mount, Hacker, and the Hell servers Lightning Storm all went into battle. After the battle, less than 1/10 of the players could return to the main city. However, the fact that they could return proved one thing. The blood tiger was defeated. This was because if the players were defeated, all of them would die. Not a single one of them would return. This was the attitude of the players when they took the battle seriously. The original and non-server players who did not participate in the battle understood the specific process of the battle through the live broadcast. In this battle, the players were still the stronger side and had an obvious advantage. However, the process was extremely tortuous. Every time the players cleared out the blood thralls, more blood thralls would appear from the bottom of the lake. In the end, the players' stamina was exhausted. They relied on the stamina potion from the shop to support themselves. Fortunately, they won in the end. During this period, the battle between Hacker and Blood Tiger was also extremely exciting. However, in terms of strength, the Blood Tiger, who had been stuck at the peak of the demigod realm for a long time, was obviously superior. In the end, he had killed Hacker and Reinhardt. Fortunately, in the end, the Naraka server activated Lightning Storm and severely injured the Blood Tiger. Otherwise, with the presence of the demigod realm Blood Tiger, the pressure on the players would be much greater. Unfortunately, the Blood Tiger escaped in the end, and the players couldn't catch it. Still, the fact that they had won was undoubtedly a heartening thing. What made the players from the European server, the Infernal server, and the Asian server even happier was that the blood pool would belong to them. When they recalled that the original players had obtained the bloodstone from the Blood Tiger, they began to explore the bottom of the blood pool excitedly, hoping to find traces of the bloodstone. However, after a careful search, they were disappointed to find that there were no bloodstones at the bottom of the blood pool. The only thing he could find was a transparent crystal stone. There was no blood energy within it. There were also players who analyzed and explained the situation on the forum. They said that the blood pool relied on this stone to continuously produce blood thralls. The nutrients in the blood pool had long been depleted in this battle. Naturally, there were no more bloodstones. The transparent crystal stones were the best evidence. As soon as the news spread, the players who participated in the battle were extremely sad. Fortunately, they had at least obtained a large number of soul coins, experience points, and points from this battle. Many players had also successfully leveled up in this battle. It was still a great profit. What the players didn't know was that the victory in this battle had brought forward the real time of the war. After being injured and escaping, the Blood Tiger found the other 4 leaders of the Western underworld. At the same time, he told them a piece of news. There aren't many soldiers left in the Death Realm city. We can break through. At least from the Blood Tiger's point of view, although he had exhausted all his resources in this battle, he had seen with his own eyes that not many of the players who had gathered had survived in the end. Therefore, he felt that the time for the final battle had come forward. At this moment, he hated the player clan very much. However, he was now a commander without an army. Therefore, he still had to rely on the help of the other 4 leaders in this battle. In this regard, after a discussion, the other 4 leaders agreed to Blood Tiger's request to start the battle. Since they knew that there weren't many people left in the player clan, there was no need to continue probing them. The right choice was to wipe them out in one go. Moreover, they believed that Blood Tiger wouldn't lie to them. Although they were in charge of different forces and territories, they had the same master. Essentially, they were on the same side. However, before the official start of the battle, they asked for permission from the heavenly realm and received an answer. In the following days, 4 enormous armies assembled at the east side of the Death Realm, which was also the region where the Burning Float Realm was located. Then, under the leadership of the 5 overlords of the Western Underworld, Burning Float Realm, Blood Tiger Realm, Lava Realm, Soul Devourer Realm, and Black Lord Realm, the army marched toward Heaven River City in a grandiose manner. This time, they weren't probing. They were going to completely destroy Heaven River City. At this moment, the players were naturally unaware of all this. However, as the enormous army advanced, some of the players who were scouting outside soon discovered that something was wrong and conveyed the news to the forum. According to this player, he was captured and questioned by the 5 leaders. At that time, he saw Blood Tiger, who had escaped during the battle at the Blood Pool, and there were 4 other demigod powerhouses beside him. As soon as the news spread, all the players in Heaven River City were shocked. The attack of 5 demigod powerhouses was definitely a force that the players couldn't resist. At this stage, only Aogien from the original server and Reinhardt from the European server could fight against a demigod powerhouse. As for the Naraka server's Lightning Storm, it could only be used as a trump card due to the long charging time and the fact that it could easily cause damage to one's own side. It had an unstable lethality. This was similar to the original server's Niefong. Although it was powerful, it was also very limited. Regarding the upcoming battle, the players in the forum were discussing countermeasures. There were even professional players who conducted simulations and analysis of the battle. In the end, they came to a conclusion that the current combat power of all the players in Heaven River City could at most fight against 2.5 Blood Tiger forces. It would be extremely difficult to resist any more than that. In this regard, many players expressed different opinions. However, the results of the discussions were basically fluctuating between 2, 5 and 3. There was not much difference. In other words, all the speculations indicated that the players might not be able to resist this battle. At this time, different voices appeared in the forum. Crayon Shinchan opened a post to angrily rebuke the players who conducted the simulation test. What nonsense simulation analysis! There are too many uncertainties in a real battle. Besides, have you forgotten that you can summon a meat shield with 3 billion points? It has been almost 2 months and the points have reached 1.98 billion. When the battle starts, do your best and try to summon the meat shield before the entire army is wiped out. This is the opportunity to turn the tables. Original poster. Crayon Shinchan. As soon as this post was published, the players instantly saw the hope of victory. Thinking of the heavenly devil who was still on his way to arrival, many players could not help but smile. Not to mention 5 demigod powerhouses, he could even withstand 10 of them. The Meat Shield title was not just for show. After all, he was a man who had withstood the nuclear explosion. Chapter 741. In the face of the upcoming war, although the players were a little worried, they made the decision to fight to the death when they thought that there was a chance to turn the tables as long as they reached 3 billion points. The players' fighting spirit was ignited at the thought of the competition for the regional leaderboard. This time, the guild leaders of the various servers had also discussed beforehand that there would be no infighting in this battle. Although everyone was still worried about being cheated by players from other servers, at this moment, the footsteps of the great battle gradually approached. Since the NPCs in the major player cities had yet to arrive, they could not receive any external help in this battle. For example, the original server's Suaya, the European server's Evil King, the Naraka server's Super AI Ike, and so on. If all these forces were present, the players would have the confidence to fight against the alliance of forces in the Western underworld. However, at this moment, the players could only rely on themselves. However, facing the impending battle, the players wouldn't just sit around and wait for death. They immediately began to deploy defensive structures. The bombs made by the Bomberman were sold out at this moment. Not only did players from the original server buy it, but players from other servers also bought it in bulk. These powerful bombs, as long as they were thrown at the right time and killed a lot of monsters, they would definitely be able to recoup their losses. They were considered gambling tools on the battlefield. If he couldn't throw it, he would lose soul coins, but if he could throw it accurately, he would make a killing. During this period, the non-server players also began to set up totem traps outside the city gates, such as the ancient bronze trees vine trap, entanglement trap, and so on. The Naraka players began to set up a battle fortress at the east gate, as well as a series of technological defensive projects. During this period, the original server's life profession players shone brilliantly. As the original server had a more complete development of life classes, they were able to create all sorts of medicinal pills, potions, alchemy tools, and other items that could increase one's combat power in a short period of time. This allowed other players to see the strength of the original server. This type of product was sold in large quantities at the auction house. However, this time, the original server players were very honest. They didn't choose to scam players from other servers. Their prices were basically at cost. They didn't try to drive up the price of goods to make a profit from the war. This was because this battle required all players to work together to face the enemy. Victory belonged to everyone, and defeat was the same. The actions of the original server players lessened the hatred in the hearts of the players from the other servers who had been conned. While the players were preparing for the upcoming war, the forces of the Western underworld arrived. This time, it was a real monster attack. It was no longer a simple probe. Standing at the top of the city wall and looking forward, a huge horde of monsters covered the sky and the ground like locusts, and they were rapidly advancing. At this moment, the players standing outside the eastern city gate were ready to face the attack. At this moment, a figure took the lead and charged forward. Although his speed wasn't fast, his footsteps were unusually firm as he charged towards the beast tide without any hesitation. At first, there were players who wanted to stop this reckless player, but after seeing the iconic, shiny head, they suddenly gave up on that idea. Instead, a smile appeared on their faces. This was because the charging player was none other than Yuan Fong. Having been in Heaven Reverse City for a long time, Yuan Fong was very sad. Originally, he wanted to grind his skills in battle, but no one wanted to play with him. Moreover, every time a monster wave came, the players didn't have enough for themselves, so they wouldn't leave the monsters for him. This really made Yuan Fong feel suffocated. He felt that if this went on, he would be depressed. Now that he saw such a huge horde of monsters, Yuan Fong knew that his chance to farm his god art had arrived. In order to not have his kill stolen, he decided to leave first. At this moment, Yuan Fong's figure became incomparably tall in the eyes of the players. He was running towards the sunset, and there were monsters all over the mountains and plains in front of him. His thin figure really had a trace of bravery and courage. Some players even took a screenshot of this moment and saved it. As he got closer and closer, Yuan Fong came into contact with the horde of monsters. Instantly, countless monsters pounced on him and began to bite and tear his body apart. Gotcha! Crack! The sound of bones breaking and teeth breaking was heard one after another. These monsters couldn't break Yuan Fong's strong defense and damage reflection talent at all. Instead, they were injured. However, the monsters that had no self-awareness didn't care about the injuries on their bodies at all. They continued to attack Yuan Fong. As long as one of their companions died, new monsters would take their place. Yuan Fong, on the other hand, had no intention of blocking the attack. After glancing at his mastery that was slowly increasing, he opened the forum and observed the battle from a different perspective through the live stream. As for his body, let him roll on his own. After all, his body had matured. It was time for him to learn how to grind his god art proficiency. Apart from the monsters surrounding Yuan Fong, the other horde of monsters continued to advance toward Heaven Reverse City. The battle broke out at this moment. The players from Naraka immediately activated Lightning Storm. A dark cloud surrounded by lightning suddenly formed in the sky, and countless bolts of lightning that were as thick as the mouth of a bowl began to bombard the horde of monsters. The totem trap of Fei Zi was also triggered at this moment. Countless vines suddenly rose from the ground and began to entangle and strangle the nearby monsters. Seeing this scene, the 5 leaders who were at the back of the horde of monsters looked a little pale. They all looked at Blood Tiger. I don't know why they still have so many soldiers. Maybe I made a mistake. Blood Tiger looked embarrassed at this moment. Don't bother explaining. Since we've made the decision, let's take down this city. Ran Fu said coldly. He then turned into a stream of light and dashed toward the front of the battlefield. Blood Tiger and the others looked at each other and immediately flew toward the battlefield. They're coming. Ao Jian, go up. Seeing the 5 figures coming from the back of the battlefield, Lu Chai immediately shouted in the live chat channel of the Fake Wall Squad. Ao Jian didn't reply. At this moment, he also dashed toward Ran Fu, who was at the front. Reinhardt, go up and help. Li Xingzai also spoke in the live chat channel at this moment. Upon hearing this, Reinhardt immediately nodded. He then reached out and patted Hacker, who was under him. Brother, let's go! Roar. Hacker immediately flapped his wings and suddenly turned into a black lightning, rushing toward the sky. As the players and the horde of monsters collided below, the battle of the peak level also began in the sky. Seeing Ao Jian coming toward him, Ran Fu made the first move. At this moment, his half-real and half-virtual body suddenly transformed into 9 clones and faced Ao Jian at the same time. Demon Seal. At this moment, the 9 clones and the original body simultaneously slammed their palms forward. Suddenly, 10 distorted words were formed in the air, intertwining with each other and pushing toward Ao Jian. At this moment, Ao Jian's eyes were filled with light. The 9 spiritual swords behind him rotated forward and a majestic sword intent soared into the sky. Boom! The sword intent collided with the seal and immediately penetrated it. Its power did not decrease at all as it headed toward Ran Fu. Seeing this scene, Ran Fu's face revealed a horrified expression. Although he only had the strength of a demigod realm, he had a very thorough understanding of the demigod realm since he was stuck in the demigod realm. Although he could not guarantee that he was the strongest among the demigods, he was almost invincible among those of the same realm. Therefore, in his opinion, his demon seal was more than enough to deal with Ao Jian's sword intent. He could even seal Ao Jian's sword intent together with his sword intent. However, he did not expect that it could not even withstand a single blow and was pierced through by the sword intent. At this moment, Ao Jian's majestic sword intent had truly shocked him. Just when Ao Jian's sword intent was about to pierce Ran Fu, a figure suddenly appeared in front of him and blocked the attack for him. Be careful, His sword intent is very extraordinary. I suspect that he has comprehended a complete rule of sword intent. Molten Fire, who had blocked the attack for Ran Fu, said with an embarrassed expression. Obviously, it was not easy to take the attack. What? Hearing Molten Fire's sword intent, Ran Fu was also shocked. If Molten Fire's speculation was right, then this person in front of him had the potential to advance to the ancient god. I can't let him live. At this moment, the Soul Taker, who was at the back, suddenly rushed toward Ao Jian. Along with her roar, the sky was filled with ghostly shadows that danced and dived toward Ao Jian. Sword Realm. In the face of the attack, Ao Jian appeared very calm. With a wave of his hand, 9 spiritual swords circled around his body, and then suddenly spread out, forming a sword realm that covered a diameter of 100 meters. Spiritual swords gradually formed in the sword realm, and under Ao Jian's control, they stabbed toward the ghostly shadows that filled the sky. As the number of spiritual swords in the sword realm increased, the ghostly shadows that filled the sky were quickly swept away. At this moment, Ao Jian was surrounded by tens of thousands of swords, and he really looked like a sword god who had descended to the world. Not only were the 5 team leaders stunned, but even the players were shocked. At this moment, Ao Jian raised his hand and pointed at the Soul Taker. Wherever the sword pointed, a majestic murderous aura had already attacked before the sword intent had even arrived. Oh no, help me! At this moment, the Soul Taker was frightened and immediately shouted. Upon hearing this, Blood Tiger and the others quickly came to the Soul Taker. At the same time, they raised their hands forward, and the spiritual power in their bodies was vigorous, forming a black energy barrier. Go! Ao Jian said softly. Suddenly, tens of thousands of swords faced toward him, as if they were guided by God. The tens of thousands of spiritual swords that were circling around his body pointed in the direction that Ao Jian pointed. At this moment, countless spiritual swords rushed out of the sword realm and bombarded the black barrier like raindrops. Suddenly, countless spiritual light spots splashed in the sky, and there was even a spiritual rain below. At this moment, the 5 team leaders of the West Side Underworld, who were hiding behind the energy barrier, were shocked. At this moment, they could already be sure of one thing, and that was that this person had really comprehended a complete rule of sword intent. Return. At this moment, Ao Jian waved his hand, and suddenly, tens of thousands of spiritual swords returned to the sword realm. However, before the 5 team leaders could breathe a sigh of relief, the spiritual swords that had been fully charged in the sword realm attacked again. Ding! 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 The sound of collision continued, and the black energy barrier gradually became transparent under the impact of the spiritual swords. Seeing this scene, the players below were dumbfounded. What the F***ck? Did Ao Jian fix the match last time? His strength is too terrifying. 1 against 5, and 5 of them are in the demigod realm. My god, he's too strong. He's worthy of being one of the strongest among the cheaters. When I first used a sword, I watched his battle videos. Boss Ao Jian is awesome. While the players were discussing, North Star Blade, who was also watching this scene, was shocked. The sword intent that Ao Jian displayed at this time made him feel that he was completely invincible, and even made his sword heart tremble. After a short period of shock, he could not help but shake his head, and a smile appeared on his face. In the end, you still walked a new path. Congratulations! Chapter 742. At this moment, Ao Jian was fighting against the 5 of them alone, but he still had the upper hand. This made Reinhardt, who was originally prepared to help, completely dumbfounded. Both he and Haka were in the demigod realm, but they had a hard time fighting against Blood Tiger and were eventually defeated. However, Ao Jian, who was also in the demigod realm, was fighting against 5 people alone, which really hurt his weak heart. At this moment, Haka curled his lips and said, "Are you stupid? He has mastered a complete rule of sword essence, so he can totally fight against those of a higher level. He's not on the same level as you and I. What is the rule of sword essence? Reinhardt asked in confusion. You'll come into contact with it in the future. Let's go and help the people below. He alone is enough. Haka did not wait for Reinhardt's response and dived down with him. At this moment, the battle between Ao Jian and the 5 leaders of the Western underworld was still going on. The spiritual swords that filled the sky gathered in front of Ao Jian like a tide. After they were fully charged in the sword realm, they would once again rush toward the 5 leaders. After repeating this for 3 times, Ran Fu and the others could not hold on any longer. I'll block this one. You guys retreat first and attack him from the side. At this moment, Lava shouted angrily and put his palms together in front of his chest. Earth. Along with his angry shout, the soil on the ground floated up and covered the surface of his body. In the blink of an eye, he turned into a stone giant with a height of 30 meters. Retreat. Along with Lava's angry shout, the other 4 immediately retreated and then split into 2 groups, rushing toward Ao Jian from the left and right side. At this moment, the black barrier was broken, and thousands of spiritual swords bombarded the surface of Lava's body like raindrops. Suddenly, gravel flew everywhere. In the blink of an eye, half of Lava's stone giant's body was shoveled by the spiritual swords. At this moment, Lava welcomed the baptism of the spiritual sword rain. At this moment, the light swords that filled the sky pierced his body back and forth. Boom! Lava's half-real and half-illusory spiritual body suddenly exploded in a few seconds. Seeing this scene, the other 4 people's hearts trembled and a chill rose from the bottom of their hearts. They did not expect Lava to be killed by the spiritual sword rain in one blow. He did not even have the time to scream before he died. At this moment, Ao Jian made them tremble. However, it was too late to retreat. They could only grit their teeth and rush toward Ao Jian, trying to take advantage of the opportunity created by Lava to kill him. At this moment, the spiritual swords were outside the sword realm, and Ao Jian did not have any spiritual sword by his side. However, in the face of the joint attack of the 4 leaders of the Western underworld, he didn't retreat a single step. Instead, he calmly waved his hand, and the spirit swords immediately surged back. Quick, kill him! Soul Capturer let out an ear-piercing scream at this moment. The palms of the 4 simultaneously hit Ao Jian. Bang! Ao Jian's was the 4 people's palms. Ran Fu and the others were overjoyed when they saw this. They raised their palms and slammed them down. At this moment, Ao Jian's body kept retreating under the continuous attacks of the 4 people. However, gradually, Ran and Fu and looked on. This was because the scars they had inflicted on Ao Jian would disappear in the blink of an eye. I don't believe it. Ran Fu looked ferocious as he launched a palm strike with all his strength. Fu to say, "Si and Ao in and Fu," and said, "Demon." Ao said in. And I. Ao Jian smiled as he wiped the blood from the corner of his mouth. The sword essence of the law vibrated in his body, crushing the 4 forces that invaded his body. The injuries on his body were healing at a speed visible to the naked eye. This was the reason why Ao Jian was so confident to resist their attacks. The power given to him by the tree god was full of vitality and the will of the tree god to never compromise with death. As long as this power was not exhausted, he would not die unless it was a fatal injury. Ao Jian let out a long howl when he saw the 4 people who had stepped into the sword realm. With him as the center, the majestic sword essence swept toward the 5 people in the sword realm like a wave. The 4 leaders in the sword realm were terrified and wanted to retreat. However, it was not easy to leave with the majestic sword essence in front of them and the thousands of spiritual swords behind them. At this moment, the sword essence wave and the spiritual swords surged into the sword realm. Inside, there was a storm of swords trapping the 4 leaders. The wind howled and the sound of the swords pierced their eardrums. The sharp sword essence pierced through the barrier that they had set up together and made their bodies hurt. The ending was already decided at this moment. The 5 of them could not resist Aojian even when they joined forces. Without the lava, they were no match for Aojian. The blood tiger, who had already been injured in the previous battle, was the first to be unable to bear it. At this moment, its body became a little transparent and showed signs of collapsing. Let me leave. I have a way to deal with him. Use your lives to create a chance for me to leave. Ran Fu shouted at the capturer and the others. Are you serious? Blood Tiger, who realized that he could not escape death, turned to look at Ran Fu. Do you remember the warrior remains plan that I mentioned to you? I've succeeded, and I've buried the body of an ancient god who died in battle in the western underworld in the evil spirit pit. As long as I leave, I'll have a way to deal with them, Ran Fu shouted hysterically as he listened to the sword chime in his ears. Hearing this, Blood Tiger's face showed a trace of misery. It's all up to you. I'll help you leave. As soon as he finished speaking, Blood Tiger pounced into the storm of swords. Boom! His body exploded at this moment, creating a gap of about 2 meters in the storm of sword. However, the gap in the storm of swords began to heal rapidly before they could leave. Go! Black Lord immediately stepped forward and used his body to block the gap that was healing. Ran Fu and Capturer did not stop when they saw this. They immediately passed through the gap and flew out of the sword realm. When they turned to look, they found that Black Lord had been swallowed by the storm of swords. His body disappeared in the blink of an eye, and they could no longer feel any trace of his life. Go, I can't hold them off for long, Capturer said coldly. Ran Fu had mixed feelings when he heard this, but he still flew toward the evil spirit mountain decisively. Seeing this, Aojian's sword essence surged around him and pointed at the capturer. Although she was afraid, the capturer did not retreat this time. Along with the sound of wailing, countless ghosts appeared again and swarmed toward Aojian. At this moment, she unleashed all her strength and did not think of leaving a way out for herself. The opportunity for her resurrection was in the heaven realm. As long as she completed the mission, she could still have a new life, but she would not have this memory. The ghosts that filled the sky collided with the myriad spirit swords at this moment, and the sky bloomed with brilliant colors. However, it only lasted for less than 3 minutes before the capturer could not hold on any longer. At this moment, the myriad spirit swords pierced through the ghosts and finally passed through the capturer's body. Then, the myriad spirit swords returned and completely shattered the capturer's half-real, half-illusory body. At this moment, the players below burst into deafening cheers. Witnessing the legendary moment of Aojian fighting against 5 people, even the players who were not from the original server cheered sincerely at this moment. I didn't do it. Why am I so excited? F***CK, hurry up and kill monsters to level up. Sooner or later, I will be able to kill a demigod. I want to become stronger. My Chinibu soul is burning up. I heard that the original server has a sword essence mentor. Can we go and learn from him? King original server players, hurry up and post a sword essence cultivation teaching video on the forum. Hurry up, let's go and fight the monsters. At this moment, the players' fighting spirit was also ignited, and they madly pounced on the group of monsters in front of them. At this moment, Aojian turned into a stream of light and flew in the direction of Ran Fu's escape. At this moment, Ran Fu was still running for his life. Although he did not have the ability to tear the space, he was using all his strength to jump through space. Every time it jumped, it would leap a long distance forward. After more than 10 minutes, his figure appeared in the Evil Spirit Mountain. Without any hesitation, he pounced on the deep pit in the Evil Spirit Mountain. His figure kept falling in the pit, and when he reached the deepest part, a huge body appeared in front of Ran Fu. At this moment, countless dark green energy in the pit was surrounding the body, and it seemed to be repairing the body. Around the body, there were the remains of many creatures that covered the whole pit. Looking at the body, Ran Fu's eyes lit up with hope. He gritted his teeth and made up his mind to pounce on the ancient god's body. When Ran Fu's half-real body came into contact with the ancient god's body, he voluntarily abandoned his physical body and chose to enter the body in the form of his consciousness. This integration process was extremely painful. The ancient god's body could not accommodate his consciousness at all, and the strong rejection kept wearing down his consciousness. I'm not willing, integrate for me. Ran Fu screamed in pain. However, it was all in vain. How could a demigod occupy the ancient god's body? His consciousness began to be devoured by the ancient god's body bit by bit. At the moment when his consciousness was about to dissipate, Ran Fu's heart was filled with endless hatred. He used the last of his consciousness to inject his obsession before his death into the ancient god's body, which was to destroy the main city in his mind, and at the same time, activate the ancient god's body. At this moment, the ancient god whose soul had dissipated suddenly opened his eyes. Since he did not carry any consciousness, the ancient god's eyes showed a trace of confusion. At this moment, a city appeared in his mind, and he did not know why he was filled with hatred for this city. Roar! He stood up and let out a deafening roar. Suddenly, the pit collapsed and buried him. At this moment, Ao Jian had arrived. He was puzzled when he saw the collapse of the pit. At this moment there was a loud noise. A figure that was 100 meters tall suddenly leaped up from the ground and landed on the ground. Then, the figure strode toward the direction of the land of death. Seeing this, Ao Jian's heart skipped a beat, and he immediately tried to stop the giant from moving forward. As if sensing Ao Jian's hostility, the ancient god's body suddenly turned around and threw a punch at him. Along with a series of sonic booms, the space was torn apart. Ao Jian was directly smashed into a mist of blood by the punch, and then turned into a black mist and dissipated. After doing all this, the ancient god's body once again ran toward the main city of heaven reverse without looking back. At this moment, the effect of the soul-praying wine kicked in, and Ao Jian was resurrected on the spot. Looking at the ancient god giant who had already run far away, Ao Jian's eyes were filled with horror. He did not even manage to resist the punch, and before the life force that the tree venerable had left in his body could take effect, he had already fallen into death. At this moment, Ao Jian realized that the situation was not good. If the ancient god's body entered the battlefield, who could stop it? Could it be that the main city of heaven reverse could not be saved? Chapter 743. Realizing that the situation was very bad, Ao Jian immediately conveyed the news to the players who were still fighting outside the city gate through the live chat channel. The players who heard the news were also shocked. In their opinion, Ao Jian's strength was already very strong. However, if he could not withstand the incoming punch of the giant, then who else could fight against it? Brothers, hurry up and farm. We have to rely on the big meat shield to save the day, otherwise, Heaven Reverse City will be gone. There are still 200 million points left. Big Meat Shield, come out and save the day. The strength of the Big Meat Shield should be around the godly state. Ao Jian's strength should also be around the godly state. Since Ao Jian can't even withstand one blow, the Big Meat Shield definitely can't beat the coming giant. We're doomed. Who can the Big Meat Shield beat? He's good at resisting. It's fine as long as he can. The players were discussing about this and began to kill the monsters without any regard for their lives. There was not much time left for them. Whether the Big Meat Shield could fight against the coming giant or not, he was their last hope. How could the players be willing to let the city be destroyed without even trying? At this moment, the crazed look of the players was very similar to when they first entered the battle. With the improvement of the players' strength, they gradually tended to cooperate in the battle instead of mindlessly fighting the monsters with their lives. However, at this moment, due to the urgency of time, the players could not care about all this at all. They only had one thought at this moment. It was fine if they died. The most important thing at this moment was to increase their points to 3 billion and summon the Big Meat Shield. The players who had given up on defense were more ferocious than the monster tide at this moment. They also pounced on the monsters like a tide, completely giving up on resisting the monster's attack. They wanted to drag a few monsters down with them even if they had to die. Under the crazy attack of the players, the total points began to increase crazily. However, at this moment, a figure appeared on the horizon and quickly approached Heaven Reverse City. As the figure ran, the earth trembled. "Oh my God, hurry up and kill them! There are still 12 million points left. Hurry up and kill them! Healers, stop healing and attack together. The main city is going to be gone." Seeing this figure, the players knew that the giant that Ao Jian mentioned was coming. The players were completely in a frenzy of killing for the last 12 million points. Even the clerics had decisively given up healing their teammates and changed to using their fists, teeth, and other weapons to fight the monsters. Although the effect wasn't obvious, killing one more would give them more hope. At this moment, Reinhardt, who was in the air, was determined. He patted Haka and said, "Don't worry. Haka, kill him. Are you King serious?" Hacker was stunned. "He will revive in 3 hours. What are you afraid of? Hurry up and go. Delay him for as long as you can, even if it's just for a few seconds." Hearing this, Hacker's expression became serious. He flapped his wings and charged towards the giant that was rushing towards him. As the distance between the two sides closed, Lionheart and Hacker felt a terrifying pressure radiating from the front. However, at this moment, all of them had the intention to risk their lives to stall for time. Without any hesitation, they continued to charge forward. Shadow charge. Following Reinhardt's angry roar, a circle of black threads appeared on the surface of Hacker's body, and his speed suddenly increased. The two figures collided. At this moment, Reinhardt felt like he had crashed into a speeding train. Hacker, who was in front of him, instantly exploded into a mist of blood. Then, his vision dimmed, and a notification of his death rang in his mind. He did not even manage to block it for a second. Reinhardt was extremely sad. According to his original plan, the giant should have stopped for a while. However, the reality was that his blocking effect was close to zero. The giant did not slow down at all. In the blink of an eye, it was less than 2,000 meters away from the main city. Looking at the remaining 2 million points, the players were furious. Seeing Reinhardt's miserable state, they knew that they did not have the ability to block the giant's attack. All attempts to block it were futile. Just as the players thought that Heaven Reverse City was about to fall, a voice rang out in the live chat channel. "Spicy Sky Match." At this moment, the players suddenly felt that this voice was very pleasing to the ear. Following Niefeng's Chunibu shout, a glaring black light appeared, and a large number of monsters in front of them were instantly vaporized. Boom! When the sound of the explosion rang out, the world in front of them turned black. This lasted for more than 10 seconds before dissipating. Because there was not enough material for this explosion, it was not as powerful as the previous ones. However, it was enough. At this moment, a game notification rang in the minds of all the players. Frowny face game notification. Heaven Reverse City's Descent of the Devil has been completed. NPC Slayer is entering the battlefield. Following the game notification, a figure slowly condensed in the sky. At this moment, Lu Wu appeared. However, at this moment, Lu Wu was extremely sad. "I'm going to fight the ancient god realm's remnant body at the beginning of the game. Do you have to have such high expectations of me? Most importantly, this ancient god looks like he's in pain when he hits people." However, what Lu Wu did not expect was that as his figure appeared, countless golden light spots suddenly appeared on the bodies of the players and frantically gathered towards him. Lu Wu was a little surprised, but he soon understood the reason. He was the Emperor, and all humans were his people. This power was the Emperor's aura. Just like what Bailey had said, the more prosperous the human race was, the more powerful the Emperor's aura would be. At this moment, Lu Wu was shrouded in golden light, and he suddenly became extremely majestic. At this moment, the ancient god's remnant body had trampled many players to death and was approaching the main city. At this moment, Lu Wu did not dare to delay. He immediately stood in front of the body and swung his fist. Countless golden lights twined around his right arm. The sky was filled with golden light, and the world in front of him was suddenly shrouded in gold. The vigorous power from his fist swept forward in an instant. At this moment, the advancing speed of the ancient god's remnant body began to slow down at a speed visible to the naked eye. Boom! Lu Wu's fist came into contact with the ancient god's chest. Suddenly, Lu Wu's body bounced backward like a cannonball and smashed into the main city wall. Instantly, the wall collapsed and debris flew everywhere. However, this punch also stopped the ancient god's remnant body from moving forward, and it even made it take a step back. Feeling the hostility coming from the front, the ancient god's remnant body suddenly glanced at Lu Wu. Lu Wu did not dare to delay. He immediately got up and rushed towards the ancient god's remnant body. Otherwise, if he fought in the main city, all he would lose would be soul coins. Moreover, at this moment, Lu Wu had never felt so powerful. If Ao Jian had the ability to fight against a God Realm warrior because he had mastered the power of the law, however, Lu Wu, who was also a demigod and possessed the heavenly demon record and the Emperor's aura, was even more powerful. At this moment, the battle between the two began. Every time Lu Wu attacked, it was as if he was assisted by God. The golden light spots that were circling around his body would always scatter forward along with his attack. Although the ancient god's remnant body was not as fancy as Lu Wu's, every punch it threw was hard and fierce, causing Lu Wu to grimace in pain. At this moment, the two figures were entangled together. One punch, the other punch. There were no fancy spells, it was purely a physical collision. The aftermath of their battle was equally destructive. As the two collided, the ground quickly sank and soon, a deep pit with a diameter of 1,000 meters was formed. Did anyone notice that the big meat shield has become stronger? He really has become stronger. In the past, he only knew how to resist attacks, but now I notice that he can actually block the opponent's attack. Unbelievable, he is not a meat shield at all. I noticed it too. In the past, the big meat shield's fighting skills were really too much for me to complain about. He was comparable to my nephew who was obsessed with fighting every day. Now, he is obviously much stronger. In this battle, Lu Wu slowly displayed the fighting skills that he had learned in the artifact space, and he gradually got into the zone during the battle. At this moment, his eyes turned completely golden. The speed of his punches increased, and the golden light spots that filled the sky accompanied his attacks, rippling back and forth like a golden gauze. At this moment, Lu Wu forgot about the pain in his body and devoted himself to the battle. Accumulating strength was like drawing a bow, releasing strength was like shooting an arrow, and controlling strength was like drawing silk. The strength seemed to be loose but not loose, and it was about to be unleashed. The strength was endless. As the fighting skills and moves floated through his mind, Lu Wu withdrew his fist, accumulated strength, and punched out. At this moment, hundreds of different colored belts emerged from Lu Wu's body, mixed with the golden light spots, and blasted the ancient god's neck. The blood rule, the dark rule, the force rule, the ice rule, at this moment, all the rules that Lu Wu had collected burst forth with power. Boom! Like a bolt from the blue, the power of this punch shattered the space like glass. It only stopped after the crack in the space extended for nearly 100 meters. The ancient god's remnant body was sent flying by this punch. However, Lu Wu's attack did not stop. At this moment, the golden light in the sky converged and adhered to the surface of his body. The sword realm suddenly formed, and countless golden lights converged into swords, floating around him. Lu Wu also knew the sword will rule that belonged to Ao Jian. Go! Learning from Ao Jian, he stretched out his hand and pointed. Suddenly, the sky full of golden spiritual swords rained down on the ancient god's remnant body. At this moment, the ancient god's remnant body that fell to the ground let out an angry roar. It stood up abruptly and began to move forward against the golden light in the sky. At this moment, Lu Wu did not know why, but he could actually feel a sense of anger from the ancient god's remnant body. But no matter what, he was determined to defend this city. When the ancient god's remnant body broke through the sword rain and came face to face with Lu Wu again, Lu Wu withdrew the sword will rule, and then a piercing cold light appeared in his eyes. 10,000 miles of ice. This was a unique skill that belonged to the ice seal, and he knew it too. At this moment, the sky started to snow, and the ancient god's fist also landed on Lu Wu's left chest. However, at this moment, a layer of ice spread across the ancient god's remnant body at a speed visible to the naked eye. As Lu Wu punched with his right fist, the layer of ice shattered, and the ancient god was blasted away again. After hitting the ancient god's remnant body, Lu Wu's aura changed abruptly again. His eyes turned blood-red, and the vigorous power of blood and qi surged in his body. His physical body was enhanced once again. This time, Lu Wu took the initiative to pounce on the ancient god's remnant body and pressed it to the ground. Both of his fists turned into a sky full of blood-red fist shadows, crashing down with a loud bang. At this moment, the ancient god's remnant body was completely suppressed by Lu Wu, and it could not get up at all. Wow! Witnessing this scene, the players were truly shocked. Because this was not a meat shield. In the player's impression, the big meat shield was useless except for his ability to resist attacks. He had no skills to speak of in battle, and he did not know any spells. However, this time, the big meat shield's close combat skills had significantly improved, and he had even learned many spells and even mastered the sword will. He must have spent money on the stupid official to enhance his strength. Chapter 744. Lu Wu had an obvious advantage in the battle against the ancient god's remnant. However, what frustrated Lu Wu was that no matter how hard he punched, the ancient god's remnant showed no signs of injury. It could always stand up after falling to the ground. His strong physique allowed him to withstand all of Lu Wu's attacks. Lu Wu had no choice but to continue fighting the ancient god's remnant. He did not believe that this soulless body could fight endlessly like him. Time passed, and soon night fell. However, the battle between Lu Wu and the ancient god had yet to be decided. They continued to punch each other. When the sun rose the next day, the players had almost cleared out the horde of monsters. However, the battle between Lu Wu and the ancient god's remnant was not over yet. At this moment, many players had a numb expression on their faces. Why don't we disperse? We've been fighting for a day and a night. Disperse, disperse. We can't intervene in a battle of this level. Moreover, I think this battle will last for at least 3 days and 3 nights. Everyone, go and take a rest. I'm a little mentally exhausted after fighting for so long. See you in 6 hours. Big Meat Shield, see you in the afternoon. I'll wave goodbye to you. Good luck. At this moment, players gradually dispersed. However, a large portion of players chose to continue watching the battle. However, as time passed, more and more players left. When night fell again, there were less than a quarter of the players who were still watching the battle. The players were completely numb to this battle. In the eyes of the players, Lu Wu and the ancient god's remnant were like 2 perpetual motion machines. Some players even speculated that they would fight until the battle went bankrupt. At this moment, there was only one person who was completely focused on the battle between the 2 sides. That person was Hu He. He had fallen in love with the ancient god's remnant the moment he saw it. Isn't this a zombie soul tailor-made for me? From Hu He's point of view, it did not matter if he could refine it or not. He had to get his hands on it first. Even if he did not have the ability to refine it now, he would have plenty of chances in the future when he became stronger. Therefore, Hu He kept waiting while shouting in his heart, "Big Meat Shield, good luck! Big Meat Shield, good luck. However, after waiting for a day and a half, there was no sign of a winner in the battle. Both sides were still full of energy. There was one thing that he noticed. The Meat Shields improved rapidly in battle, and their actual combat abilities improved significantly. The only regret was that they couldn't break through the physical defense of the ancient god's remnant body. This was also the reason why the battle continued like this. However, for the sake of the zombie spirit that he was about to obtain, he continued to suffer. Beat me until I die of old age if you dare. Lu Wu and the ancient god's remains did not disappoint him. The battle went on for 3 days and 3 nights. The players around him changed again and again, and the battle showed no signs of stopping. At this moment, Hui's heart was filled with sorrow. Are you really going to beat me to death? Great Demon King, do you want me to help the Meat Shield? Niefeng, who had been accompanying him for 3 days, suddenly asked. No money. Stingy. Shut up. 7 days passed just like that as they waited. The players had been paying close attention to the battle between Lu Wu and the ancient god's remnant body, but now they had become indifferent to it. Let's fight. Let's just treat it as a beautiful scene in Heaven River City. On the 7th day, when Lu Wu felt like he was about to throw up, the ancient god's remnant body, which was originally full of vigor, suddenly fell to the ground without any warning, lifeless. The power that was poured into the ancient god's remnant body in the evil spirit pit had been completely exhausted. Although the power was enormous, it was still incomparable to Lu Wu's real cheat. At this moment, Lu Wu slumped to the ground with a look of relief on his face. He felt like a cow that had plowed 100 acres of land continuously. It was too damn tiring. Seeing this scene, the players who were watching the battle immediately posted the news on the forum. Instantly, the players in the city swarmed over. At this moment, Hui, who had been waiting for a long time, also walked towards Lu Wu. At this moment, he suddenly thought of something and hurriedly opened the shop to purchase an item. After approaching Lu Wu, Hui took out the rock smoke that he had bought from the channel and handed it to Lu Wu with a flattering expression. Meat Shield, you must be tired after killing the big boss. Come and have a smoke. Hearing this, Lu Wu turned around and looked at Hui with a blank expression, but he had no intention of taking the cigarette. The last time he smoked a cigarette from Sunshi, he was so traumatized. This bunch of idiots actually took a screenshot and used it as a daily emoticon. They really don't know their limit. I don't want to smoke, Lu Wu immediately said. Smoke a bomb. At this moment, Niefeng raised a blue bomb in his hand. Lu Wu was speechless. At this moment, Lu Wu felt that the bomb obviously did not want his account anymore. He had no idea who he was talking to. However, before Lu Wu could speak, Hui turned around and glared at Niefeng. If you continue to cause trouble, don't follow me anymore. Yes, boss, I won't cause trouble anymore, Niefeng said with a smile. After scolding Niefeng, Hui turned to look at Lu Wu again, rubbed his hands and said, Big boss, you see, this ancient god's remnant body is quite an eyesore here. You see, why don't I move it away? Lu Wu, who had already understood what Hui wanted to do, smiled and nodded. 50,000 soul coins. F***ck, you big meat shield. When did you learn this from Tonghua? Niefeng exclaimed. At this moment, Lu Wu once again felt that the bomb obviously did not want his account anymore. It seemed like he wanted 100 years of being banned. I fought tirelessly for 7 days and 7 nights, and you think it's too much to sell for 50,000 soul coins? Do you know how much I go up and down in a second? Lu Wu could not help but complain in his heart. Hearing Lu Wu's reply, Hui appeared very calm. He immediately opened the trade interface for Lu Wu, entered 50,000 soul coins, and clicked Confirm Deal. Look, the gap between players is so huge. With that in mind, Lu Wu clicked on the Confirm Deal button. After the trade was completed, Hui ran to the ancient god's remnant body and stored it in his channel. After doing all this, he returned to Lu Wu's side and asked curiously, "Big Meat Shield, how did your strength improve so quickly? Did you go somewhere to cultivate in seclusion when you disappeared?" At this moment, Lu Wu felt that he did not want his account anymore. Just now, he called him Big Butcher, and now he called him Big Meat Shield after storing the ancient god's remnant body. This is 2F** King realistic. At this time, the onlookers also came one after another, surrounding Lu Wu and began to chatter. A few players even took the initiative to pass him cigarette. However, through his authority, Lu Wu realized that these few players did not have good intentions. They had secretly turned on the function of taking screenshots, waiting for him to smoke. Lu Wu was speechless. At this moment, he could already imagine that if he really smoked, the forum, Big Meat Shield Smoking JPG, would probably be updated countless times. Is this something that a human would do? Seeing that Lu Wu did not respond, the players began to take photos with him as if they were very familiar with each other. Hand gestures, peace signs, cheeks cupped. This made Lu Wu feel that these players did not want his account anymore. He suddenly wanted to finish the unfinished business with the ancient god's remnant body, which was to massacre the entire Heaven Reverse City and kill all these players. They really have no idea. Chapter 745. Heavenly Realm, Heavenly Realm. Dong Wang Tai sat cross-legged above the pond of virtue. The 10 prayer beads circled around him, contracting and expanding with each breath he took. At this moment, a consciousness suddenly appeared in the heavenly realm. Sensing it, Dong Wang Tai suddenly opened his eyes and began to comprehend the information transmitted by this consciousness. A moment later, a cold glint flashed through Dong Wang Tai's eyes. This information came from the 5-flower deity who was in charge of the western realm of the dead. The 5 pawns they had planted in the western realm of the dead were all dead. At this moment, Dong Wang Tai understood one thing. The 3 emperors of the underworld could no longer sit still. Thinking of this, Dong Wang Tai looked at the lotus in the center of the pond of virtue and frowned. His Excellency was still recovering. Starting a war now was clearly not a wise choice. Even if they won this war, they would have to pay a heavy price. Thinking of this, Dong Wang Tai raised his right hand and drew a circle in front of him, followed by ripples. A moment later, a figure appeared in front of him. This person was 3 meters tall and had Qilin horns on his head. His body was covered in a layer of flame-like, erratic, colorful energy. His naked upper body was bulging with sturdy muscles like rocks, filled with explosive power. "Tai Chu, where are you?" Dong Wang Tai asked as he looked at the man in front of him. "I saw the Holy Spirit King." The Heavenly Father's guess was right. The 3 realms should belong to the Heavenly Father. Annihilation destroyed the original order. Tai Chu said excitedly. "I need you now. If you've completed the Heavenly Father's mission, return as soon as possible." Dong Wang Tai said immediately. "Tai, what happened?" Tai Chu's expression turned serious when he heard this. He knew Dong Wang Tai's personality very well. He would never say something like this unless something major had happened. East Peak and the others must have guessed that Your Excellency hasn't recovered yet. They won't let go of this opportunity. They'll definitely do everything they can to weaken us. The war might have been brought forward. "All right, I'll be right back," Tai Chu replied immediately. "Can you return in 5 years?" "No need, very soon." As soon as Tai Chu finished speaking, his figure suddenly turned into a breeze and disappeared. Seeing this, Dong Wang Tai frowned slightly. Obviously, he was unable to understand how long very soon meant. However, in his opinion, it would take at least 3 years. This was because Tai Chu was in the outer realm, and it was the outer realm sacred spirit domain that was extremely far away. However, at this moment, a figure slowly condensed in the heavenly Tao realm. The moment this person appeared, he opened his mouth and sucked in all the spiritual energy in the heavenly Tao realm. "Haha, I'm back. Dong Huang Tai was momentarily dazed when he saw a Taichu appear before him. "Aren't you in the Saint Spirit domain? How did you get back?" "The Spirit King sent me back." Dong Huang Tai became slightly stern when he heard the name Spirit King. It wasn't the first time he'd heard of this name. In the legends of the Xenorace, this person knew the truth of the universe, and it was even to the extent that so long as someone spoke his name, that person would be able to instantly see through everything about that person. His own strength had reached an inconceivable level, and he was ranked first among all the forces that they had investigated. Although they were some of the most powerful in the three realms, there was still a huge gap between them and the Spirit King. This was something that even Dong Huang Tai could not help but admit. Although he had never seen the Spirit King, he had come into contact with the Spirit King before. During the Battle of the Three Realms, the Spirit King had once lent a helping hand to them. This time, Taichu had gone to the Spirit King's world to find the Spirit King in order to resolve a question that had always existed in the Heavenly Father's heart. This was because the Heavenly Father believed that only the omniscient and omnipotent Spirit King could answer this question. Evidently, Taichu had received his answer. "Why didn't the immortal lords who went to the outer realm with you return with you?" Dong Huang Tai asked as he looked at Taichu. "They're already on their way back, but they had to fly back themselves. They didn't receive the same treatment I did." Taichu was slightly helpless. "Since Taichu has returned, let's fight." At this moment, the lotus in the pool of virtue slowly unfurled, revealing Taichu. "That's exactly what I was thinking. But Taichu, you should continue to heal your injuries. Tai and I are enough for this battle." Taichu turned to Taichu and said, "I've already recovered 70%. That's enough." Taichu frowned slightly. "Good. Looks like the delicate balance between us and the underworld is about to be broken." Dong Huang Tai's eyes flashed with a hint of battle intent. "This so-called balance is just because we don't want to lose too much combat power. Now that we've recovered from the Battle of the Three Realms, it's time for a showdown with the underworld. I think Dong Yu and the others already know what we're thinking. They just have no choice but to endure it." Taichu said coldly. Speaking of the foreshadowing of Taichu's trip to the outer realm, at the end of chapter 269, just as Taichu said, the emperors of the underworld already knew that a new war would begin when Taichu returned. Then where should we start? The human race. Human Emperor Xiao Yi and Emperor Hong are already dead. It's time to destroy the human race. We don't have to worry about their return anymore. Taichu smiled. Dong Huang Tai and Taichu were shocked to hear this. Why did they die? They were killed by the Spirit King because they destroyed the order of the three realms. The Spirit King places great importance on order and balance, which is also why Xiao Yi and Emperor Hong mysteriously disappeared. They already knew that they were about to die, so they did not dare to tell their clansmen about the Spirit King's name. They were afraid that it would bring disaster to their clansmen. This is also why their clansmen do not know where they went. "What about Tumia? Is he dead too?" Dong Huang Tai asked hurriedly. Although he knew that the two human emperors were dead, Dong Huang Tai was still most worried about the first human emperor, Tumia, who was said to have existed since the three realms had been founded. From Dong Huang Tai's perspective, Tumia was powerful enough to destroy the heaven realm all by himself. As long as he was still around, he would be the greatest threat. I asked the Spirit King, but he said that he has already left the space and time of this realm. We can't find any information about him, but we can be sure that he won't be coming back, so we don't have to worry. Good. The three realms should be unified. That's great. Dong Huang Tai said excitedly when he heard that. The three human emperors of the human race had always been three mountains that weighed down on them, so they did not dare to act recklessly. However, now that they knew that two of the three human emperors were dead, and one of them had even left the space and time and was unable to return, they no longer had to worry too much. Their only opponent now was the underworld. Then we'll start with the human race first. We'll start a war with the underworld after we kill the human race and take the 6 paths of origin. Half a month later, in the human realm. Spiritual chi was a very unfamiliar thing to modern people. No one would even believe that such a thing existed. After the Great War of the 3 realms, the human race was heavily injured. 2 sources of spiritual chi were cut off, but the human race still walked a new path that belonged to them in the age of chaos. Thousands of skyscrapers sprung up like bamboo shoots after a rain. The city was bustling. Although the current human realm did not have the beautiful scenery of the age of spiritual chi, it still had its own unique beauty. People did not have long lifespans and strong bodies, but they also cherished life even more. They also experienced the short life from a different perspective. In the era of the Big Bang of information, people understood the world they lived in more and more. However, they respected nature and even made a series of doomsday movies. Tsunamis, alien invasion, explosion, zombie crisis, the awakening of prehistoric animals, and so on. All of these were possible dangers in everyone's eyes. However, they also thought that these doomsday dangers were very far away from them and they would never see them in this lifetime. They did not expect that it existed at all times. There was always a ferocious tiger lurking in the dark watching them, waiting for the opportunity to hunt. At this moment, this ferocious tiger opened its scarlet eyes. The starry sky that was dotted with stars was very beautiful. However, what was different from the past was that there were countless cracks in the sky now. Countries quickly discovered the abnormality in the sky and began to investigate the cause. It was also at this moment that countless immortals flew out of the cracks on the spiritual beasts of the celestial realm and came to the human realm. There was no conversation, and there was no need for any conversation. They only had one mission, and that was to completely destroy the human realm. The air raid sirens sounded in the sky above every city. A moment later, flames also rose in the bustling cities. The end of the world came so suddenly that people did not have time to react. The mainstream media of various countries who received the news began to quickly report this matter and issued a warning to all humans. Urgent news: it is suspected that extraterrestrial life has invaded and started a war all over the world. Everyone, please pay attention to your safety. Everyone, please pay attention to your own safety. Attention all listeners. Please find the nearest air raid shelter to take refuge. This time, it is not an act. I hope everyone takes this seriously and protect the safety of yourself and your family. Humans have ushered in an unprecedented challenge. Countries have already sent out their troops. Pray for their safe return. Looking at the report on TV, people were stunned. This scene usually only appeared in movies, but they did not expect it to actually happen at this moment. At this moment, people's hearts were filled with fear. They walked to the balcony, walked out of their room, and looked up at the starry sky. Suddenly, they saw countless figures descending from the sky. Tall buildings collapsed under their attack. Their methods were just like the immortals described in the myth. Every move they made had the power to move mountains and fill up seas. However, what they brought was not beauty but disaster. Cries, heart-wrenching wails, and explosions echoed in every city. The human realm was in turmoil at this moment. Although people responded to the invasion of the heavenly realm in time, the difference in power between the two sides was not something that modern technology could make up for. This was a completely unequal war. In just a day, several major cities were destroyed and turned into ruins. The increasing number of casualties made people feel the despair of the arrival of the end of the world. At this moment, the news that happened in the real world had already spread to the battle forum. At this moment, the players were no longer as calm as they used to be. Indeed, they were fearless in the game, but in reality, they were just ordinary people. This time, they might have to go offline permanently. Players often joked that they would play Battle Forum until they were old. Going offline permanently would only happen at the end of their lifespan or the moment when Battle Forum closed down. However, they did not expect that they might really have to go offline early this time. It was not because of the end of their lifespan, nor was it because of the closure of Battle Forum, but because of the sudden apocalypse in the face of the catastrophe. The players also realized how difficult the challenge that all of humanity was facing was. At this moment, they finally had to say goodbye to the game. This was because they had family and friends in the real world, and they should be by their side in the most critical moment. At this moment, the players said goodbye to each other, and sent what was probably the last message in the battle forum. Brothers, it's time for me to go offline. If there's still tomorrow, let's go to the dungeon together and farm monsters. I'm sorry to leave you guys, but I really have to go offline. I need to bring my family to the shelter. Thank you, everyone from the Soaring Cloud Guild, for your company for the past 3 years. Thank you. *CK this motherf king invasion. I don't want to die. If only I had the ability to fight in battle forum. A nearby city has been destroyed, and it's going to be our turn soon. I really don't want to die. Many of the names in my friend list have been dim for a long time. Usually, they would not go offline for more than 6 hours, and some of them would not go offline for days. I pray that they are still safe and sound. I believe that we can get through this. Brothers, we will meet again in Battle Forum in the future. The name of the player clan will be known throughout the entire game world. That's it, no one is allowed to leave early. At this moment, the online rate of Battle Forum was unprecedentedly low. In the face of this apocalypse, their hearts were filled with uneasiness, apprehension, fear, and even more so, confusion about the future. No one could guarantee that humanity would be able to get through this crisis that came from beyond the heavens. This feeling of helplessness, where they could only hope and wait for the arrival of news, was hopeless. In the following days, humans welcomed the purge of the forces from the heavenly realm. Not only were the major cities in the world destroyed by the forces from the heavenly realm, but even the humans living in remote areas could not escape this catastrophe. This was because the purpose of the heavenly realm's arrival was to completely wipe out the human race, and make this race with great potential disappear forever. At this moment, humans even used nuclear weapons in an attempt to blow up the cracks in the sky. However, not only did all the means of attack have no effect, but it also made the attacks from the heavenly realm even more brutal. They were unscrupulous and merciless. Although they looked similar to humans, they carried out the massacre mercilessly. The first to be completely destroyed were the satellites and signal base stations. The forces from the heavenly realm were the first to cut off the communication between humans. At this moment, technological weapons were no longer useful. Under the situation where they could not locate and communicate with each other, any missiles and long-range attack weapons had completely lost their power. Despair spread in the human world, surging in the hearts of all humans. The new civilization that humans had spent thousands of years to create collapsed just like that. This time, there was no turning the tide at the end like in the movies, nor was there a moment of dawn after the apocalypse. There was only endless darkness, carrying out the catastrophe to the end. At this moment, no one was the protagonist. Everyone was like an ant in the face of the powerful forces from the heavenly realm. Even Lu Wu did not expect that the heavenly realm would suddenly choose to declare war on the human world at this time. He was not prepared for this at all. At this moment, not a single player in Battle Forum was online. Under the catastrophe of the human world, the souls of the players kept returning from Lu Wu's artifact space. These souls were the players who had died under the massacre of the forces from the heavenly realm. Lu Wu's eyes were filled with anger when he thought of the final farewell of these players in the forum. You will reunite in the battle. I will lead you to seek revenge, I promise. Chapter 746. Under the catastrophe, the future of the human race was uncertain. After destroying all the major cities, the forces of the heaven realm began to purge the human world. They even planned to kill every single human. At this time, the sky above the human world was filled with the members of the heaven realm. They looked down on the human world, waving their death sighs, slaughtering all the living beings they could see and searching for the humans hiding underground. The technological power that the humans were proud of was like a shield that could be easily pierced through in front of the forces of the heaven realm. Despair swept across the land of the human world. A large number of humans died every minute and every second. No matter where they hid, they could not escape the detection of the consciousness of the forces of the heaven realm. Even if they were deep underground, the outcome would be the same. This was the final moment of the human race. Even if they were filled with grief and indignation and wanted to fight, they were ultimately powerless. In just 5 days, the human world had completely fallen and the people were plunged into misery and suffering. At this time, the only thing Lu Wu could do was to put all the human souls into the artifact space to preserve the last flame of the human race. At this moment, he wanted to seek the help of the great emperors, hoping that they could save the human world. However, Lil Bailey stopped him at this moment. According to Lil Bailey, the destruction of the human world was irreversible. The only way to win was to let the heaven realm enter the underworld and fight the heaven realm on their home ground. This was because the Yin energy in the underworld would gradually corrode the bodies of the forces of the heaven realm, which could weaken their strength. Although the impact was not significant, considering the overall situation, they had to hold on to even the slightest bit of hope. Otherwise, the already weak underworld would not be able to compete with the heaven realm. At this moment, Lu Wu was filled with grief and indignation. He was also a part of the human world. He could not bear to see the human world fall, and his helplessness made him even more furious. The attack from the heaven realm was sudden, but to Lil Bailey it was reasonable. They had already shed all pretense of cordiality and had an absolute advantage. Why would they give us a reason to develop? Although Lu Wu understood Lil Bailey's explanation, he still felt angry. Next, he would start his revenge. The catastrophe of the human world lasted for another 5 days. The remaining humans in the human world were less than 1,000th of the original number, and it was still decreasing rapidly. This included many Battle League players. Before they died, these battle players only had one thought in their minds as they faced the members of Heavenly Realm's forces. How good would it be if I had the ability to fight now? That way, I would be able to resist and not wait for death to come. Countless players died in grief and indignation, their consciousness hazy and confused. After that, their vision completely turned into darkness. They could only feel that they were drifting, but they had no idea where they were drifting to. At this moment, a voice suddenly sounded, and the players' souls instantly regained clarity. Game notification. All players will be revived in 1 minute. All players, please get ready. Destination: your respective main cities. The appearance of this game notification woke all the players up. At that moment, they even wondered if they had just had a nightmare. In reality, they had always been in the game, and the cataclysm was just a scene in the dream. But all of this was too real, and the heart-wrenching despair still lingered in his heart. At this moment, the players' hearts were filled with confusion as they waited for what would happen in a minute. What was the truth? However, at that moment, some of the players revealed a relieved smile. For example, players such as Ao Jian, Qi Ming, and Chara in the beginning, they all thought that this game was just a simulation of the underworld by a powerful person. But now, they knew that everything was arranged. Perhaps the person behind the scenes had already predicted that the cataclysm would come to the human world, and this was the backup plan that he had left for all humans. As they waited, the darkness faded and light reappeared. At this moment, white lights flickered in all the main arenas, and countless figures returned. Bakey's mansion of the underworld in the main server, Sangshu's hidden dragon city in the European server, Blue Valley City in the Naraka server, Devil's Ridge Skyburning City in the Asian server, and Xianfeng tribe in the non-African server. Under Lu Wu's control, All the players were revived. At this moment, the players' faces were filled with confusion. Why did I enter the game? Am I not dead? With so many doubts, many players tried to quit the game. At this moment, the game notification rang in their minds. Game notification. Unable to find the host. Quitting the game is invalid. Just as the players were puzzled by this, a voice rang in their minds. I know that you have a lot of doubts now, but you have to understand that the future of the human race is in danger. The flames of war will soon spread to the underworld. Be prepared for battle. You are the future of the human race. Hearing this voice, the players were in an uproar. At this moment they understood one thing. The cataclysm in the human world was not a nightmare. It had really happened. Regarding this, the players opened the forum and tried to find the answer. At this moment, the players were discussing in the forum. At this moment, Ao Jian, Qi Ming, and the others began to explain the reason. Gradually, more and more players understood one thing. This was not a game at all. Everything that they experienced in the game was real. The person behind the scenes had already predicted the crisis that the human race would face. Everything he did was to protect them, and more importantly, to accumulate the power to fight against the coming crisis. All the players fell silent at this moment. The truth of the cataclysm in the human world was unacceptable to them, but their hearts were ignited with raging anger. Before they died, they longed for the power to fight. That way, they would be able to resist and fight. At this moment, their dreams had come true. At this moment, countless roars could be heard in all the major cities. At this moment, they longed for war and revenge. At this moment, the game notification suddenly sounded again. Game notification. Loading the newbie template. Main cities divided by region. As the game notification sounded, white lights flashed in all the major cities again. Countless new players appeared. They did not have the best equipment and were at the initial state of level 0. Their faces were filled with confusion. However, when they saw the new players, the sadness in the players' hearts turned into joy. This is the best I can do. Go and find your loved ones. Lu Wu's voice echoed in the minds of all the players. At this moment, Lu Wu added all the dead humans into the war as newbies. Hearing Lu Wu's words, all the players' faces were filled with disbelief. The loss of their loved ones made them extremely sad. They thought that they would never see each other again, but they never thought that they would be reunited in the war. At this moment, the players were filled with gratitude towards the person behind the scenes. Don't thank me. I don't have any soul coins now. Kill more and earn money for me. Lu Wu said impatiently as he looked at the players who were cheering excitedly. Stupid official, hurry up and open a passage to the human world for us. We are going to kill our way back. Stupid official, come out and get beaten. Bring us back. I don't want to sit still and wait for death. Stupid official, now I finally know why you are so stingy. I forgive you for being stingy, but you hid it from us for so long. Come out and get beaten first. Shameless official, stingy maniac, I love you. Hearing the players' cheers, Lu Wu could not help but say, love my foot. Hurry up and spend soul coins to improve your strength and get ready for the upcoming war. My heart is aching. I will die without spending 3 million. I don't have any soul coins with me now. Can anyone lend me some soul coins to spend? Forget it. I have already lost 300 million. Your 3 million is nothing. Although I have guessed that soul coins will become a universal currency and its value will continue to rise, I never thought that the value of the currency in reality would be reduced to 0. Sad. Haha, I exchanged all my money for soul coins a few days ago because I thought I would keep it. I didn't expect to earn so much. Now I am bringing my old mother to buy some new equipment. The players thought that the future of mankind was completely hopeless. They did not expect to be reborn at this moment. Their deceased relatives and friends had returned, just like how they said their goodbyes in the forum. They met again in the midst of the war. Be there or be square. After knowing the predicament that they were about to face, the players began to follow Lu Wu's instructions and spend a large amount of soul coins to improve their combat power as much as possible. Because this time, it was not a game but a real war. During this period, the life profession players began to help other players create a series of tools that could help improve their strength for free. Soul coins were important, but at this moment, they knew that they had to unite and resist the invasion of the heavenly realm. According to the mastermind, the flames of war were about to spread to the underworld. This would be their last line of defense. If they failed, they would truly be homeless and completely expelled. The mastermind's years of hard work would also be in vain. With this in mind, the players worked together and even established contact with players from other servers. They had truly forsaken the past and united as one. All the players had a fire burning in their hearts, waiting to be vented. At this time, in the human world, the forces of the heavenly realm had launched their final carpet search. They would not let any life go. And their next target was the underworld. In fact, the heavenly realm had never taken the forces of the human world seriously. Their ultimate goal had always been the underworld. The reason why they chose the human world as their first target was to erase the thing that they were most afraid of from the bottom of their hearts. They did not want to give the human race any chance to rise. This was because Dong Wangtai had a speculation. If they were to directly wage war with the underworld might choose to recruit the human race into the underworld and make them part of their power. If that was the case, then with the potential of the human race, the longer the war dragged on, the more disadvantageous it would be for the heavenly realm. This was because they had witnessed the potential of the human race with their own eyes. This was also the reason why the heavenly realm did not allow the forces of the underworld to step into the human world and have any contact with the human race after the Treaty of the Three Realms was established. At this time, the human race had been completely annihilated. Their next battle was directly against the underworld. At this moment, the countless seals of the underworld were unlocked. The suppressed Azura, the reincarnated demonic god of Xidagarba, Chio Nyo of the land of Chio, and so on. These ancient gods not only had absolute strength, but they also had an unwavering will to go against the heavens. The great emperors never asked about the competition below them, but they always chose to protect the true powerhouses. Especially after the fall of the heaven-defying alliance, they would rather be sealed than allow them to fight against the heavenly realm. This was because they were the hope of the future battle against the heavenly realm. At this time, the time of the decisive battle had arrived. The three great emperors of the underworld had unlocked their shackles and chosen to let them come into the world. The entire underworld was boiling at this moment. It was also at this time that Lu Wu opened up the passage to the human world. Although the final battle would be in the underworld, it did not stop Lu Wu from wanting to deplete the combat power of the heavenly realm in advance. At this time, the players were in urgent need of soul coins that needed to improve their strength. The forces of the heavenly realm were the best targets to reduce the casualties of the underworld as much as possible during the final battle. Chapter 747. The players never thought that there would be a day when the exchange system between currency and soul coins would completely collapse. Now that they were reborn, soul coins had become their only currency, and money in reality was worthless. This made many players upset that they did not exchange all their money into soul coins. They felt that they had suffered a huge loss. However, things had come to this point, and there was no turning back. During this period, the players also began to look for their relatives who had just entered the war. They wanted to bring them to understand the content and the truth of the game. At this moment, other than being touched by the reunion, there was also a sense of absurdity. At the north square of the Mansion of the Dead, the digitized Sun Chi's parents were looking around blankly. They obviously did not understand what had happened. However, they clearly remembered that they were already dead. Could this be the underworld? The place where people ended up after death? Thinking of this, Sun Chi's parents felt a sense of desolation. At this moment, they thought of their son who had pounced on the invaders before he died and was brutally murdered. Son, you came to the underworld too? Are you well now? Just as the two elders were feeling sad, a little white dog suddenly jumped out from the crowd and hugged Sun Chi's mother's left leg with an excited look on its face. After rubbing against it, it said, "Mom, I'm so happy to see you again." Seeing the dog, Sun Chi's parents were stunned. First, this dog could talk. Then, this little white dog was calling me mom? Hiss, move aside, silly dog. Sun Chi's mother immediately kicked the dog away. Mom, I'm really your son. Sun Chi pounced over again and hugged his mother's left leg. He raised his head pitifully. I don't believe it. How could my son become a dog? Sun Chi's mother looked horrified. The dog was speechless. He did not know where to start explaining, and he suddenly thought of a fatal problem. I'm afraid I'll be in the form of a dog for the rest of my life. Thinking of this, the dog was horrified. Since everything in the game was real, then this body was also real? The dog looked around and observed the players around him. His expression gradually became blank. Everyone else is in the form of a human. Only I'm an animal, or a little white dog. Dog officials, save me. I don't want to be a dog, I want to be a human. Go Zi howled to the sky with a face full of grief and indignation. Looking at the dog howling into the sky, Sun Chi's parents were dumbfounded. This silly dog was a little interesting, Mom. At this moment, the grief-stricken Guzi pounced on his mother again in an attempt to seek comfort. Sun Chi's mother raised her leg and wanted to kick him, but Guzi dodged it nimbly and hugged her leg again. Sun Chi's mother immediately raised her leg and shook it, but she found that she couldn't shake him off at all. Mom, Dad, I'm really Sun Chi, your son. Listen to me. Sun Chi's face was filled with grief and indignation as he hurriedly began to explain. At first, Sun Chi's parents didn't believe what Go Zi said. However, as they listened, they gradually believed him. That was because Go Zi said many things that only their family knew. At this moment, the expressions of Sun Chi's parents changed from disdain to sadness. Son, what sins did you commit in your past life? Why did you get punished by the king of hell and turned into a dog? Go Zi was speechless. This is not the underworld. No, this is the underworld. Sai, think whatever you want. Go Zi suddenly fell to the ground with a dispirited look on his face. He felt that his weak spirit had been dealt a heavy blow. At this moment, he really wanted to contact the dog officials and ask for help, but he had no way of contacting the dog officials at all. At this moment, in the mansion of the dead's East Square, there was also a grief-stricken mother. Oh my God, my money is worthless now. If I knew this would happen, I would have exchanged it all for soul coins. I've lost so much, my heart hurts. Looking at his grief-stricken mother, Mo Xiaoxin was expressionless. Do you even have any savings? You used all your savings to buy soul coins, I saw it with my own eyes. Even if you have some left over, how many soul coins can a few thousand yuan be exchanged for? Is 5 enough? Keep acting, I won't speak. My dear son, your old mother is so sad. Aren't you going to comfort her? At this moment, Mo Lanlan turned to look at Mo Xiaoxin. My condolences, my dear mother. Perfunctory, Mo Lanlan said with a sorrowful face. She looked at Mo Xiaoxin as if she was looking at an unfilial son. It made Mo Xiaoxin's scalp go numb, and he felt that something was wrong. My dear mother, stop fooling around. The game just notified us that we're about to be sent to the human world. Hurry up and get ready, the war is about to start. Hearing this, Mo Lanlan put away her sorrowful expression, and in a second she became cold. If that's the case, then I'll lay my cards on the table. I don't have any money now, but I need to change my equipment, buy 5 berserk pills, 7 bottles of battle potions, and 100 sets of special HP recovery potions from the shop, and, in summary, I think my dear son, shouldn't you? Hearing this, Mo Xiaoxin's expression instantly froze. Has this day finally come? He knew his mother, and he knew that she would really do it. However, what terrified Mo Xiaoxin the most was that, if his identity was really exposed, then he would have no way out. Back then, the worst outcome was to bid farewell to the war, but now… Do I even have a *king choice? Now that I don't even have my main account, if I'm exposed, I'll be gone too. Look at you, scared. Do I look like that kind of person to your mother? Hurry up and give me all the soul coins you have. I'll spare your life first, then hurry up and make money, or else I'll sell you. Mo Lanlan glanced at Mo Xiaoxin and said. Hearing this, Mo Xiaoxin's heart slowly sank. Then, he opened the trading panel sadly and traded all the hundreds of thousands of soul coins he had painstakingly saved up. After receiving the soul coins, Mo Lanlan immediately beamed with joy. She no longer paid attention to Mo Xiaoxin and happily ran to the Pharmacist Association, ready to buy money. Looking at his mother's back as she left, Mo Xiaoxin looked sad. As expected of my biological mother, she's so good at exploiting her son. Motherly love is like a mountain, crushing my waist. Now I can't escape even if I die, so *king miserable. The joy of reunion gradually diluted the sadness, but the players did not forget their hatred. At this moment, they still clearly remembered the helplessness and despair before death. The pain of being unable to resist was still fresh in their memory. Next, it was time for their revenge. While waiting, the game notification sounded. Frowny face game notification. The crossworld passage is about to open. All players participating in the battle, please click on the activity panel to participate. The teleportation will open in 10 minutes. Destination: Human World. As the game notification sounded, the players who were already prepared clicked on the activity panel without hesitation and pressed the Join the Battle option. At this moment, many players who were only at level 0 and had just entered the battle conquests chose to join the battle. Not for anything else, but to take one last look at the place where they lived and do their best to contribute. For the veteran players of the battle conquests, this battle was exactly what they wanted and looked forward to. Last time, we were helpless and at your mercy, but this time, we'll pay you back double. While waiting, the battle time was over. At this moment, all the players of the 5 servers were sent into the artifact space, and the artifact was ready to release them to the human world. At this time, in the human world, the forces of the Heaven Realm were still searching for the remaining members of the human race. Although the human race was on the verge of extinction, what they wanted to do was to completely wipe the human race from the 3 realms. They would not let any member of the human race survive. At this moment, the soldiers of the Heaven Realm were cold-blooded and merciless. They even treated killing the weak as a form of entertainment. Especially those immortal dukes who had experienced the great war of the 3 realms, they knew how terrifying the human race was. At this moment, they were even more ruthless. All the forces of the Heaven Realm believed that it was time for the 3 realms to be unified. From then on, the Heaven Realm would be the only ruler. Therefore, they had no mercy for the human race. They treated them like ants that they could trample on at will. At this moment, Lu Wu, who was observing the situation in the human world, received the feedback from the artifact that the players had assembled. He took a deep breath and prepared to send himself and the players to the human world. This time, he decided to continue fighting side by side with the players. This was also his own promise. However, before leaving, Lu Wu thought for a while, opened the forum and clicked on a piece of music. Then, his figure slowly faded out of the artifact space. P.S. Recommend a suitable piece of music. I hate myself for loving you. As the artifact created the teleportation channel, at this moment, a crack in the space suddenly appeared in the sky of the human world. This time, it was not the members of the Heaven Realm who descended from the sky, but the players. They were back. This time, the players were fully armed. They were no longer lambs waiting to be slaughtered. At this moment, with the power of the war blessing on their bodies, they once again turned into a natural disaster. They were fearless of death and dared to challenge any enemy. Bastards from the heaven realm, wait for your death. How did you kill me in the past? Now I'll pay you back by killing your entire clan. This time, it's our turn. Ha! Before I die, I'm thinking how great it would be if the ability from the war could be used in reality. Thank you, stingy dog of a game, long live. Healers, use the buff. Sorcerers, activate the turret mode and bombard me. Everyone, drink the enhancement potion. Let's go. Ha ha ha, I saw a member of the heaven realm below. Priest, give me a shield. I want to smash him to death. Accompanied by the roars of the players, the natural disaster arrived. At this moment, the members of the heaven realm raised their heads in confusion. They could not understand why a creature would suddenly descend from the sky. Players, this time, it's our turn to be ruthless. Chapter 748. As spatial rifts appeared in the sky, countless players descended from the sky. This time, the players were the ones who came prepared instead of the members of the Heaven Realm forces. The members of the Heaven Realm forces looked up at the sky in astonishment. They clearly didn't understand what was happening. But they soon understood because the players' attack had begun. At that moment, the players showed their fearless, ferocious side. Battles broke out in all areas of the human world. During the battle, the players of the major servers let go of their prejudices and chose to work together. Exchanging lives for lives and risking their lives to kill the enemy, they didn't seek victory in this battle. They only wanted to vent their anger. Even if they weren't strong enough, they wanted to bite a wound on the members of the Heaven Realm forces before they died. Under such an attack, many members of the Heaven Realm forces were killed in a short time. This alerted the immortal lords who were in charge of searching for the remaining members of the human race. Puzzled, they immediately flew toward the area where the players gathered. The level of the battle instantly escalated, but the players weren't afraid at all. At this moment, they were the real calamity. Just like in the battle game, they were fearless of any powerful enemy. If you dare to provoke me, I will fight you with my life until one of us dies. The players' craziness terrified many of the Heaven Realm warriors. They hadn't fought for a long time and had never seen such a crazy way of fighting. Even though they were stronger than the players, they were still frightened by the players' imposing manner. The fear on the faces of the members of the Heaven Realm forces was exactly what the players wanted to see. At this moment, the god-slaying team of the players also set off at this moment. They had formed a team in Heaven Reverse City in advance. Every one of them was a wall-level player of the major servers. This time, they only had one goal: to slay a god. Perhaps they weren't strong enough to fight against an immortal state master alone, but they believed that they could fight an immortal state master if they worked together. The ranking of the Heaven Realm forces in descending order: Immortal Soldier, Ghost Soldier; Immortal Commander, Ghost Commander; Immortal General, Ghost General; Immortal Talisman 1 to 3, Ghost King, Ghost Emperor Peak; Demigod, Immortal State, Immortal Lord, Ancient God; Sky, Immortal, Emperor. At this moment, in the heavenly cemetery of Chi-Dragon, a team of about 100 people from the Heaven Realm was searching for the members of the human race who might have survived. At this moment, they sensed that something was wrong and suddenly turned to look at the sky. Bang! Along with the sound of a bullet leaving the chamber, there was a sharp, piercing sound. A member of the Heaven Realm team immediately leaned back, and a bloody hole appeared on his forehead. The bullets forged by Lin Tai are pretty good, right? Lu Chai turned around and asked Black Lily. Black Lily did not answer. She raised her sniper rifle again with a cold expression, aimed at an immortal general-level Celestial Realm member, and pulled the trigger again. Pay attention to defense. Seeing this, the Heaven Realm team leader immediately turned his head and shouted at his team members. Then, he formed a seal with one hand and a shield engraved with purple patterns appeared. He leaped towards the direction where the bullet came from, wanting to block the attack. Seeing this, A cruel smile appeared on Black Lily's face. She snapped her fingers. Immediately, the purple bullet disappeared. When it reappeared, it was already on the forehead of the immortal general. After a short space jump, the bullet accurately hit the target. Bang! Blood splattered and the immortal general fell to the ground with a look of disbelief. Cool! Go-Z immediately gave Black Lily a thumbs up. You're courting death. The leading demigod realm powerhouse was instantly furious. A golden rope appeared in his hand, and he suddenly swung it at Black Lily, who was still in the air. Leave this to me, the rest is yours. At this time, Reinhardt made his move. He pointed the long spear in his hand at the demigod realm team leader on the ground. Suddenly, a dark realm was formed, isolating them from the outside world. This was Reinhardt's strongest move, Dark Duel, which could create an independent space in a short period of time. He had used this move to kill many powerhouses in battles, including Murphy, one of the original players. Now that his ability had advanced, this move was even more powerful than before. As the independent space was formed, everything in the outside world became blurry. Countless black tentacles formed and entangled the demigod realm team leader from the heaven realm. Independent realm? Seeing this, the demigod realm powerhouse had a shocked expression on his face. This meant that the opponent in front of him had already touched the edge of the law. At this time, Reinhardt patted Haka, who was under him, and let out a roar. Haka, if we lose this battle, I will stew you. Attack. I don't need you to stew me. If I lose, I will stew myself. Bastards from the heaven realm, I will kill your whole family. At this time, Haka's eyes were red. After hearing Reinhardt's order, he suddenly pounced on the demigod realm powerhouse. As a part of the underworld and with his inherited memories, Haka's hatred for the heaven realm was engraved in his bones. At this moment, seeing the heaven realm member, red lines suddenly appeared on the surface of Haka's body, and he immediately went berserk. The battle of the demigod realm began. At this moment, Haka seemed extremely crazy. He had completely lost his former laziness, and took the initiative to cooperate with Reinhardt to attack. The difference was that the demigod realm team leader from the heaven realm cherished his life very much. He did not dare to risk his life, nor did he dare to exchange blows with Haka. He could only defend himself. At this time, as the members of the wall team landed on the ground, their attack also began. Without the team leader, someone from the heaven realm team immediately shouted, "Get into formation quickly. I'll get into formation quickly." Lu Chai swallowed a bottle of battle-will potion the moment he landed. Then, he pounced like a ferocious tiger and punched the heaven realm member who spoke, sending him flying. Knight of 100 Ghosts. Qi Ming also attacked at this time. With a wave of his hand, the realm of Ghost Dao was formed. Countless evil spirits were summoned and crossed the boundary, pouncing on the members of the heaven realm team. Murphy and Little Pomelo's figures merged and turned into shadows, looking for opportunities to harvest lives. After Gu Yu's demonic god body was activated, he transformed into a 20-meter-tall giant. The power of blood and qi that filled the sky was ignited, and the flames swept forward with the support of Chara's ancestral panther totem. The real body of the ancestral panther appeared and pounced forward together with him, Tesla in the form of Battle Fortress Android Eric. The members of the wall team showed their strong side. Most of the members of the Heaven Realm team were only celestial generals and celestial talismans. Facing the attack of the wall team, they were completely powerless and fell in large numbers. Get into formation, get into formation. Under the chaos of the formation, some members of the Heaven Realm could not help but shout. Realizing that they would all die if this went on, the members of the Heaven Realm gathered together under the pressure of the wall team's attack. One by one, they formed a seal. At this moment, a formation that covered an area of 100 meters appeared on the ground. Seeing this scene, who was already prepared, made his move. Corpse Burial Coffin Seal. At this moment, the hundreds of zombie spirits surrounding who he suddenly turned into black fog and pounced on the members of the Heaven Realm. Then, the black fog condensed and turned into black coffins, sealing the members of the Heaven Realm inside. Die. Accompanied by Huhi's angry roar, the coffins trembled and sank into the ground bit by bit. Screams suddenly sounded. The members of the Heaven Realm in the coffins were rapidly eroded by the zombie energy, their vitality quickly fading away. They struggled and slapped the coffins, trying to break free from the restraints of the coffins. However, when the zombie energy entered their bodies, they felt weak all over and were unable to resist Huhi's seal. In the end, they gradually fell into the coffins and lost consciousness. Their bodies were subsequently destroyed from the inside out by the zombie energy. At this moment, Huhi patted the corpse soul bag. Instantly, the zombie energy surged into Huhi's corpse soul bag. This battle ended in a short period of time. Other than the captain, the members of the Heaven Realm team were all annihilated. At this moment, everyone looked at the place where Reinhardt disappeared and began to wait. After a while, a smile appeared on everyone's face. Not far away, the figures of Reinhardt and Hacker slowly appeared. At this moment, Hacker and Reinhardt looked miserable. Hacker's wings were broken and his right leg was gone. He stood with his left leg. Reinhardt, on the other hand, was bathed in blood. His eyes were bloodshot and the armor on his body was completely shattered. However, the spear in his hand was holding the body of the demigod realm master. At this moment, half of his body was bitten off and his eyes were lifeless. He was completely dead. "I won, this feels great!" Roar. At this moment, Hacker also let out an excited roar. Seeing this, Huhi gave a thumbs up to Reinhardt. "Amazing! Great Demon King, keep it!" At this moment, Reinhardt waved his spear and threw the body of the demigod realm master in front of Huhi. Seeing this, Huhi could not help but be stunned. "It's a gift for you, I have no use for it." Reinhardt grinned. "How can you say that it's useless? It can be sold for soul coins at the auction house. I'll keep the body. Even if I owe you 30,000 soul coins, I'll return it to you after this battle." Huhi shook his head and smiled. Then, he kept the body of the demigod realm into his channel. "Another team is coming from not far away. Get ready, kill their whole family." At this moment, Lu Chai's voice sounded again. Everyone's heart skipped a beat and they immediately looked at the Heaven Realm search team that was rushing towards them. A new battle was about to break out at this moment. Not only the members of the Wall Cheat group, but all the players were fighting hard against the forces of the Heaven Realm. Although the strength was not equal at this moment, the players at least had the strength to fight back and were no longer waiting for death. This time, they chose to fall in the midst of a hearty slaughter. Lu Wu did the same, fighting alongside the players. At this moment, his opponent was a celestial Sir, but in Lu Wu's eyes, it did not matter. He fell again and stood up again and again. As the battle continued, Lu Wu could see the disbelief in the eyes of the celestial Sir, as well as a deeply hidden fear. At the same time, Lu Wu's strength continued to grow during the battle. All the players' emotions affected him, causing his emperor energy to grow stronger and stronger. How is this possible? After killing Lu Wu again and seeing Lu Wu resurrect on the spot with his own eyes, Immortal Lord Zhen Hai's face revealed a horrified expression. At this moment, he could no longer hide the fear in his heart and it had completely surfaced on his face. At this moment, he no longer wanted to fight anymore. This was because he knew that he could not do anything to Lu Wu. Thinking of this, Immortal Lord Zhen Hai's body floated in the air. He forcefully tore the space in front of him, wanting to leave and seek help. However, to his disbelief, the crack in the space disappeared as soon as it appeared. Unconvinced, Immortal Lord Zhen Hai tried to tear the void again. However, no matter how hard he tried, he could not create a crack in the space. It was as if there was an invisible force interfering with this space. Do you want to know why? At this moment, Lu Wu's figure appeared next to immortal Lord Zhen Hai. His right fist, wrapped in a surging Emperor energy, smashed toward immortal Lord Zhen Hai. Immortal Lord Zhen Hai was shocked and immediately wanted to turn around to block it. At this moment, the Emperor energy exploded, and immortal Lord Zhen Hai's vision was covered in gold. Then, he felt a stinging pain all over his body, and even his consciousness began to blur. Because this is my home field, the human realm. At this moment, Lu Wu was surrounded by the luck of the human realm, and his body was dyed in gold. He floated in the air like a god of war with an imposing aura, looking down on the world. Chapter 749. With the help of the Emperor's energy, Lu Wu now had the power to fight a deity master. Lu Wu's punch did not destroy the space of the human world, and all the power was concentrated on deity master Zhen Hai's body. With a blinding flash of golden light, deity master Zhen Hai's divine body could no longer hold on and shattered. Before he died, deity master Zhen Hai's face was filled with shock. He had guessed Lu Wu's identity. My home, the human world, the Emperor. At this moment, deity master Zhen Hai's divine seal appeared, and he quickly flew into the sky. Seeing this, Lu Wu's lips curled into a smile. With a wave of his hand, the heavenly demon list appeared in his hand. Suddenly, a strong suction force formed, pulling the godly seal towards the heavenly demon list bit by bit. Finally, it sank into the list and became a part of Lu Wu's law power. At the same time, the artifact was operating at this moment, completely crushing deity master Zhen Hai's soul and transforming it into a huge amount of soul power that flowed into Lu Wu's soul coin vault. After doing all this, Lu Wu closed his eyes and began to sense his surroundings. Suddenly, countless light spots appeared in his mind. This was the feedback from the human world, and these light spots represented the members of the heaven realm. For some reason, Lu Wu found himself inexplicably familiar with the space of the human world. It was as if this world was his child, and he had created it with his own hands. However, Lu Wu was not in the mood to find out the specific reason, because now was his time to hunt. And his target was the deity master. With this thought in mind, he immediately disappeared on the spot, tearing the space apart and teleporting to the nearest deity master. This battle lasted for 2 days. Under the continuous slaughter of the players, a large amount of soul coins flowed into the artifact space. However, the gap in strength could not be made up by risking their lives. The advantage of this war was completely in the Heaven Realm's favor. Although the new generation of the Heaven Realm had never experienced war, they were afraid and hesitant when faced with the madness of the players. However, the mentality of the older generation of the Heaven Realm was completely different. Especially the generation that had experienced the War of the Three Realms, they had been honed for a long time and bathed in the blood of their enemies countless times. They were the true core strength of the Heaven Realm. These older generation were not afraid of the madness of the players at all, and they even displayed the toughness of the Heaven Realm during the battle. Many teams of players that were formed by the older generation of the Heaven Realm were basically killed in a short period of time. They did not even have time to fight back. When they attacked, the various combinations of battle formations were even more dazzling. Even though the players had many tricks up their sleeves, they couldn't compare to the fact that they could change their battle formations at any time. Moreover, they could always find a way to restrain the players. Even many large guilds were powerless against Celestial Realm's older warriors. All they could do was try their best to inflict casualties on the other side. Among them, there was a godly state member from the Heaven Realm named Dragon Sealing Dao, who could create 100,000 doppelgangers all by himself. He used his consciousness to control 100,000 doppelgangers to slaughter the players. He had single-handedly stopped over 1 million players and suppressed them. The strength of the Heaven Realm was not as weak as imagined. The weak ones were only the new generation. The older generation were all warriors who had been honed through war. They were already very proficient in killing. Under the leadership of these older celestial warriors, a large number of players were killed in the following days. During this time, the Celestial Realms members also tried to search the players' souls, wanting to understand the origin of this faction. As there were many humanoid creatures in the Heaven Realm, the Human Realm, and the Underworld, other than the spiritual power that they used, there were no obvious characteristics to distinguish them. Moreover, the players did not use the spiritual power of the Underworld, but the soul power. Therefore, they had no idea that the players who descended were the humans that they had slaughtered. However, the souls of the players would not be easily absorbed by them. The moment they died, they would be sucked into the artifact's internal space, leaving no chance for these Celestial Realm members. On the contrary, after the Celestial Realm members were killed by the players, their souls would be sucked into the artifact and turned into soul coins, which were deposited into Lu Wu's soul coin vault. That was exactly what Lu Wu wanted. As long as he had enough time, the Celestial Realm could also be destroyed. The war lasted until the 4th day. Most of the players scattered in the human realm had returned to the artifact's internal space, but there were still some who were struggling. During this time, some of the players had achieved brilliant results. For example, the members of the Wall Cheaters and the professional players. The one with the best results was Lu Wu. He had killed 3 immortal dukes in this battle. With the help of the human realm's luck, he was like a god of war. Even the immortal dukes could not defeat him. However, at this moment, Lu Wu met a real opponent. Immortal Duke Fu. Although they were both immortal dukes, Immortal Duke Fu's strength was something that even Lu Wu could not resist. His combat strength was on a completely different level from the other immortal duke. With the purple gold gourd in his left hand and the sorrowful returning fan in his right, Lu Wu was killed again and again. Even when Immortal Duke Fu unleashed his full strength, he died more than 10 times. Realizing that he was no match for this Immortal Duke Fu, and continuing to fight would be a waste of soul coins to repair his body, Lu Wu was ready to retreat. At this moment, Immortal Duke Fu suddenly raised the purple gold gourd in his left hand. Suddenly, a gust of wind swept across, and an irresistible force pulled Lu Wu toward the purple gold gourd. Trying to leave? I'll bring you to the Emperor. Seeing that Lu Wu wanted to leave, Immortal Duke Fu immediately activated his immortal power and poured it into the purple gold gourd, trying to suck Lu Wu into it. Although he felt that he could not do anything to Lu Wu, who could resurrect infinitely, he believed that the Emperor must have a way. Lu Wu could not help but twitch his mouth. Do you think you can stop me if I want to leave? Suddenly, the power of the artifact space emerged, and a stronger force began to pull Lu Wu, at the same time counteracting the pulling force of the purple gold gourd. Seeing this, Immortal Duke Fu's face revealed a look of disbelief. He immediately concentrated and continued to activate the purple gold gourd, but Lu Wu just stood there, not showing any signs of being pulled away. Just as Immortal Duke Fu was feeling helpless, a voice rang out in the sky. Stay here. Along with the voice, a huge hole suddenly appeared in the sky, and an arm covered in fiery red scales slowly pressed down, completely sealing off the space at the same time. Emperor Taichu. Seeing this Qilin arm, Immortal Duke Fu immediately withdrew the purple gold gourd and bowed respectfully. Feeling this vast power, Lu Wu's heart trembled. Although this was not the first time he had come into contact with the power of the Celestial Emperor, it still gave Lu Wu an unparalleled pressure. However, Lu Wu naturally would not sit and wait for death. Although Taichu had sealed off this space, how could a war artifact that could traverse the various major spaces be restricted at will? He immediately activated the artifact with all his strength, and his figure instantly disappeared on the spot, appearing in the 6 paths of reincarnation. Just as Lu Wu thought, this huge arm also tore through the space and arrived in the 6 paths of reincarnation. At this time, Lu Wu naturally would not enter the artifact space. Just like the last time when Icy Cold and the others died in battle, Entering the artifact space now would expose the location of the artifact space, which was an extremely unwise move. However, it was not that Lu Wu did not have a way to deal with it. He took a deep breath and then shouted, "Help, the crazy celestial emperor is killing people, he's killing people!" Following Lu Wu's shout, a figure slowly appeared in the 6 paths of reincarnation. He first looked helplessly at Lu Wu, who was shouting for help, then raised his hand and waved. Suddenly, the 3,000 strings around his body condensed into one and blasted at Taichu's arm, blocking his hand from grabbing Lu Wu. "East Peak, you want to protect this person? Do you want to start a war with the heavenly realm?" Taichu's angry voice came. "That's right, not only do I want to protect him, I want to officially declare war on the heavenly realm on behalf of the underworld. East Peak, you're courting death. Do you really not care about the lives of the netherworld?" The moment Taichu saw Lu Wu, he was sure of one thing. The power surrounding Lu Wu was the Emperor energy. At this moment, he felt a strong uneasiness in his heart. He didn't know why a new human sovereign was born in the human clan, but he knew that if he was allowed to grow, the heaven realm would no longer be peaceful. A Ren Huang who had truly matured would have the strongest combat ability in the 3 realms. This was something that Taichu knew very well. Back then, he had also fought against Xiao, so he clearly understood how terrifying a human emperor was. That was why he was trying to threaten East Peak to hand over the person and use the lives of the netherworld as a bargaining chip. "I'll be waiting for you in the underworld." The great emperor of Dongyu smiled and stood in front of Lu Wu, with no intention of giving way. This time, great Emperor Dongyu was particularly unyielding. This was because he knew that after the fall of the human world, the next target of the heaven realm would definitely be the underworld. Therefore, the threat of Taichu was nothing to him. "Since we've already shed all pretense of cordiality, there's no need to be hypocritical. I might as well declare war." At this moment, the beginning was silent. After a while, his voice came again. 6 paths of origin, wait for me." After leaving these words, the beginning's right arm slowly retreated from the 6 paths of reincarnation. Seeing the beginning leave, Lu Wu heaved a sigh of relief. It feels great to have a backer. At this moment, the great emperor of Dongyu slowly turned around and looked at Lu Wu with a helpless expression. "The new human sovereign, I am East Peak." "Hello, hello." Lu Wu stepped forward and shook hands with the great emperor of Dongyu. "East Peak, great emperor of Dongyu, did you already know of my existence when I established the player clan?" Lu Wu suddenly asked. This question had been bothering him for a long time. Now that he saw the great emperor of Dongyu, he naturally wanted to ask. Hearing this, East Peak nodded. "Not only do I know of the existence of the human clan, but I also know that there's someone behind you. If I'm not mistaken," cough, cough, halfway through East Peak's sentence, he was suddenly interrupted by a young voice. "Continue," Lu Wu hurriedly asked. I can't say it. The great emperor of Dongyu suddenly shook his head. Knowing that it was Lil Bailey who was interfering in the dark, Lu Wu felt helpless as his curiosity could not be satisfied. After thinking for a while, Lu Wu continued to ask, "Are you confident in this battle? Shouldn't I be asking you that?" A smile appeared on the great emperor of Dongyu's face. Lu Wu. At this moment, Lu Wu suddenly understood why the big bosses of the underworld called the great emperor of Dongyu an old man. "Don't you know what I'm capable of? Why don't you let the players continue to kill some of the creatures of the underworld to grow?" Lu Wu asked in a low voice. Hearing this, the way the great emperor of Dongyu looked at Lu Wu changed. At this moment, the great emperor of Dongyu suddenly felt that this human sovereign really needed a beating. He's undoubtedly the worst human sovereign I've ever seen. Chapter 750. If it were not for Lu Wu's interference, Heaven Reverse City would have been razed to the ground. Therefore, in Lu Wu's opinion, he could take advantage of the period before the invasion of the heavenly realm to let the players cram in the knowledge of the laws. Therefore, the forces of the heaven realm needed a place to settle down and gather their strength. The Western underworld was their inevitable choice. Without spending a single soul coin, he was still at level 0. At this moment, the well-prepared players teleported to Heaven Reverse City to meet with the ancient god realm masters of the Netherworld. The reason was very simple. The Western underworld was the area closest to the human world. If the Heaven realm wanted to open a fixed transmission channel to the underworld, the Western underworld would be their best choice. After they became players, their growth potential was completely unleashed. For example, there was a player called Heartless. Suddenly, he thought of a way to help the players improve their strength. To be able to walk the path of cultivation during the Age of Chaos, there wasn't a single one of them who wasn't a genius, and even more so an outstanding talent among the entire human race. Therefore, the increase in lifespan, the growth in physical strength, the control of supernatural powers, and so on were all very tempting to the players. Great Emperor of the East Mountain, can I borrow a few ancient gods from you? After that, Lu Wu released another game announcement to inform the players of the commencement of the rule learning course. If the first time wasn't enough, they would do it twice. If the second time wasn't enough, they would do it thrice. The players could easily take over the Western underworld. Of course, he did not have the aura of a Ren Huang at all. Even if he couldn't quickly grasp the essence of the power of the laws, he could first lay a foundation and plan for the future. This time, it wasn't a game, but a real cultivation session. At this time, the players' thirst for power was stronger than ever. If Lu Wu's target was only the 5 leaders of the Western underworld, he would not have needed to expend so much soul power. All he had to do was to build a few portals to get rid of this force. During this period of time, some enthusiastic players collected and filtered the comments of the players on the forum and created a guide to describe the ancient gods' personalities and other aspects in detail. The players had a plan to deal with this. They started discussing the personalities of the 100 ancient gods on the forum, trying to find a way to get close to them. This was because Lu Wu was going to ascend as a god for the players in the future. By then, the power of precept would be the key core for the players to cast the god's seal when they ascend as a god. This method also required the help of the great Emperor of the East Mountain. The appearance of this post had indeed helped a large number of players. Upon hearing this, the way the great Emperor of the Dong Yu looked at Lu Wu changed. The reason why Lu Wu chose to teach in Heaven Reverse City was because Heaven Reverse City was the only region that was connected to all the major cities. Another important point was that this main city was located in the Western underworld. However, with the help of the sword intent cultivation guideposts on the forum, it only took him less than half a day to figure out his own sword intent. Moreover, it was one of the strongest sword intents, Overlord Sword. After returning to the artifact space, Lu Wu made an announcement to the players. Like Wu Qing, there were many others who were originally members of the cultivation world in reality and possessed extremely high growth potential. As Lu Wu's announcement rang in the minds of the players from the 5 servers arrived at Heaven Reverse City through the main city's teleportation portal. Over the next few days, his sword will grew even more rapidly. Lu Wu calculated its growth rate and found that it had far surpassed the growth rate of Aojian and Northstar Blade. Don't misunderstand, I'm not borrowing him to kill. I'm borrowing him as a teacher to teach my people how to control the power of laws. Lu Wu quickly explained when he saw the change in the great Emperor of the Dong Yu's expression. Lu Wu, who was behind the scenes, was not concerned about the players' learning process, but their learning efficiency. The power of laws was one of the strongest powers in the 3 realms. As long as one mastered the power of laws, one's strength would increase by leaps and bounds and one could easily challenge opponents of a higher level. This was also the shortcut that Lu Wu thought of to improve the players' strength. At the same time, the great Emperor of the Dong Yu brought 100 underworld powerhouses of the ancient god realm with him. Among them were many people that Lu Wu was familiar with. For example, the Acheron Merchant Guild's Tree Venerable, the Rahu clan's god, Azura, and so on. Like Aojian, this player used a sword as a weapon. After this person entered the game, Lu Wu did not provide any help, but the player grew as if he had a cheat code. This was one of the most important reasons why Lu Wu built Heaven Reverse City, and also the origin of the city's name. Although they came under the great emperor of the Dong Yu's arrangement, these ancient gods had different personalities. Some were very kind and were willing to negotiate with the players, teach them the techniques to understand the laws, and even teach them other combat skills. They were eager to help the players grow. After all, the underworld was different from the human realm. It was impossible to take it down in one go, and a long war was inevitable. During this period, Lu Wu found many good seedlings, and some of them were even new players. Moreover, the more power of laws the players mastered, the more complete his heavenly demon list would be. This was also an indirect way to improve his own strength. After all, these ancient gods did not listen to him at all. They came solely because of the great emperor of the Dongyu. Now, this digitized body had become the only one, and there was no longer the main account that the players used to joke about. Some ancient gods were eccentric, and would only teach the players who were pleasing to their eyes. Otherwise, they would ignore the players even if they tried to curry favor with them. Then I'll leave it to you. After saying this, Lu Wu's figure slowly disappeared from the 6 paths of reincarnation. Game notification. Heaven Reverse City will soon launch a learning course for the power of laws. All players are welcome to participate. The specific time will be notified after the opening. As for how to learn, Lu Wu did not formulate a specific plan. Apart from the upcoming war, there was another reason why the players had such a strong desire for power. After all, the 5 leaders only had the strength of a demigod. They were not much of a threat to the players. It could be said that, apart from the fact that this player's level was not up to standard, he was already qualified to be on the wall. Looking at the spot where Lu Wu disappeared, the great emperor of the Dongyu shook his head helplessly. He felt that this emperor was not arrogant at all. P.S. The character Heartless had appeared in the plot a long time ago. He was the sword cultivator who defeated Roving Sword several times and caused Roving Sword to develop inner demons. He was also the reason why Roving Sword embarked on the path of Heartless Sword. Looking at the helpless great emperor of the Dongyu, Lu Wu smiled awkwardly. At this moment, many of the ancient gods cherished these talented players. They even almost started fighting over these talented players, staging a disciple competition. When the war between the heavenly realm and the underworld officially began, this would also be the battlefield of the 2 realms. In the following days, the players came into contact with these ancient gods. Therefore, if the players wanted to learn a skill from these ancient gods, they had to rely on themselves. Hearing Lu Wu's explanation, the great emperor of the Dongyu heaved a sigh of relief and nodded. In the next few days, Lu Wu reunited with the great emperor of the Dongyu in the 6 paths of reincarnation. After chatting with the great emperor of the Dongyu, Lu Wu settled these ancient gods in Heaven Reverse City. Even the ancient gods were shocked by their potential. Chapter 751. While the heavenly realm was sweeping through the human realm, there was still a short period of time for the players to rest. Thus, the players began to seize the time to improve their strength. The human race never lacked geniuses. This saying was widely spread in the 3 realms, but both the heaven realm gods and the underworld gods only had a vague idea of how great the human race's potential was. They never had a deep understanding of it, but now they were completely shocked when they witnessed the human race members who didn't even understand the basics of cultivation grasping profound power in a short period of time. They didn't even dare to think about this kind of potential. Although the underworld also had many talented super geniuses, the gap between them and the human race's top geniuses was instantly obvious. At this moment, Even these knowledgeable ancient gods couldn't help but exclaim about how terrifying the human race was. Some of the ancient gods couldn't help but sigh. If the heaven realm didn't have the help of the Holy Spirit during the War of the Three Realms, or if the two human emperors didn't leave, how could the heaven realm fight the human realm? At this moment, they were glad that they formed an alliance with the human race to fight against the heaven realm. They also knew why the great emperor of the East Mountain arranged for them to guide the human race members. The reason was very simple. There was absolutely no hope of winning this battle by relying on the power of the underworld alone. The only hope was still these human warriors. Although they were weak now, as long as they were given enough time and many experts were born, the advantage would gradually tilt in their favor. Actually, before they came, the ancient gods had raised their doubts to the great emperor of the East Mountain. Even if the human race has unlimited potential, cultivation also requires time, and we don't have time anymore. The great emperor of the East Mountain didn't give any reply. But now, the ancient gods understood that their worries were unnecessary. This was because these players had a special cultivation resource on them, which was the purest form of soul amplification, soul power. This was a special cultivation resource that could continuously enhance the player's soul while improving their strength, allowing them to withstand the negative side effects of rapidly increasing their strength. Witnessing with their own eyes a member of the human clan, with the help of his friends, advance from a mortal with almost no cultivation foundation to the Ghost Supreme Commander realm, the ancient gods suffered a blow to their hearts. In their eyes, this kind of cultivation speed was too King ridiculous. They had experienced a long period of cultivation and weren't born as ancient gods, so this kind of growth made them jealous. They could only use one word to describe it: cheating. They had learned this word from the players, and it was an apt description of the players' growth potential. However, some of the ancient gods felt as if they had seen or heard of this kind of growth rate before. After going through the memories that had settled down for a long time, they thought of someone. Ren Huang had been slaughtered. Ordinary human beings couldn't lead their clansmen to grow up so fast and make their subordinates immortal. However, according to the legends, Butcher's subordinates were all like this. Not only could they kill their enemies to grow, but they could also become immortal. And now, the players were behaving exactly like the Sky Demon Army described in history, even their growth was identical. At this moment, the ancient gods couldn't help but start guessing who the person behind these players was. Annihilation? It didn't look like it. In the eyes of these ancient gods, if the person behind the scenes had really been slaughtered, then the heaven realm forces would have already disappeared. How could there still be a calamity in the human world? In this regard, they could only consider other aspects. In the end, the most appropriate guess was that this member of the human race behind the scenes was a descendant of the human race who had inherited the mantle of the human emperor. The new human emperor wasn't slaughtered. After understanding each other, the ancient gods slowly put away their arrogance and began to seriously nurture the members of the human race, instead of being perfunctory. At first, they were perfunctory because they thought that the remaining time wasn't enough for the members of the human race to grow. Even if they could teach, how much could the human race grow? However, now that they understood that the growth of these members of the human race was similar to that of the Sky Demon, they knew that these members of the human race had the ability to do so. Therefore, their mentality changed imperceptibly. There were even a few ancient gods who had conflicts and almost fought over the outstanding members of the human race as disciples. The reason was simple. These ancient gods thought of the future. In the future, among the most outstanding members of the human race, there was a high chance that there would be a leader of the human race. Not to mention the level of the human emperor, even the human ancestor would be an incredible existence. Back then, 10 members of the human race joined hands to fight against Tai Shang and beat him to the brink of death. If it wasn't for the arrival of Tai Chu, the outcome would have been unpredictable. If one of the disciples that they nurtured was promoted to the level of the human emperor, it would be even more terrifying. They felt that they were really going to reach the peak of the ghost life. By then, if the old man, the great emperor of Dongyu, bullied them, they would ask the disciple who was already the human emperor to beat him up and knock out a few of his teeth. Many of the ancient gods couldn't help but let their imagination run wild. The growth potential of the players was thus recognized by the ancient gods. In the subsequent teachings, these ancient gods were exceptionally serious. It could be said that they taught everything they knew without reservation. This scene also made Lu Wu, who was behind the scenes, very pleased. Under their nurturing, the strength of the players grew rapidly. In just 3 days, one of them had already begun to step into the beginner stage of the law mastery. This person was Lu Chai. Under the guidance of the Tree Master, Lu Chai, who had already begun to come into contact with the power of the law, comprehended the law of fist intent. However, unlike the Tree Master, the attribute of his fist intent was not life, but invincible. The law was equivalent to the source of power, but the creatures who understood the law could be given different attributes. For example, Ao Jian. Back then, the underworld sword lord had mastered the sea god's sword will. However, Ao Jian, who had received his inheritance, did not have this attribute of the sword will. Instead, he had created his own new sword will. Therefore, even if one grasped the same power of laws, they would obtain completely different abilities in the hands of different people. It was the same for the rest of the players. Under the guidance of the ancient gods, what they wanted to understand was the purest power of law, not the power of law that had already taken shape with additional attributes. During this period, the player who performed the best was still the player named Wu Qing. His talent shocked many of the ancient gods. In just 4 days, he, who originally did not even have the combat power of the Ghost Commander level, had already mastered the power of law, just like Lu Chai. Moreover, it was the extremely overbearing Overlord Sword Rule Sword Will. Although he did not directly master the complete ancient god level rule sword will like Ao Jian, his growth potential really surprised the underworld ancient god. In other words, at this time, Wu Qing already had the ability to fight above his level. Although his level was still 0, with the blessing of the rule sword will, he was fully capable of defeating enemies in the early stage of the Ghost Emperor realm. Although his physical strength was still very weak, with the rule sword will protecting his body, no one without the strength of a late-stage Ghost Emperor could break through his defense. The only thing he needed now was to cultivate, which was to increase his level so that his physical strength could keep up. It was not that he did not have a shortcut for this. At this stage, Lu Wu had already opened the soul coin cultivation system. Leveling up was no longer limited to killing monsters. He could use soul coins together with cultivation methods to increase his level. After all, when players killed monsters to level up, they essentially converted part of the soul power they obtained into physical enhancement. Soul coins could be completely converted into experience for use. However, the only shortcoming of this player, Wu Qing, was one word: poverty. He was so poor that even Lu Wu could not stand it. It had been 4 days since the start of the battle expedition. Many new players had more or less improved their strength by relying on the soul coins provided by their family and friend. However, it was different for Wu Qing. His soul coin balance was still 0. An orphan player who had no family and no friends, although Lu Wu could see that he was desperate for soul coins, he had no way to earn soul coins since he had just entered the battle expedition. The 5 soul coins to enter Heaven Reverse City was because he had been standing at the teleportation point for a long time. A sympathetic player gave him 5 soul coins before he was teleported in. Lu Wu had originally planned to secretly sponsor him with a sum of soul coins. After all, he was a wall-level player with great potential. As the Emperor, Lu Wu had already begun to consider the development of the entire human race. After all, the stronger the human race, the stronger he would be. Naturally, He did not want to see a member of the human race with great potential like Wu Qing be buried. Moreover, Lu Wu was not the only one who valued this player recently. These ancient gods, who were entrusted by the great emperor of Dong Yu, also regarded him as a treasure. Even in private discussions among the ancient gods, they had already thought that this person had the potential to advance to the level of the human ancestor. Therefore, they were extremely enthusiastic about Wu Qing. They even wanted to pass on the other powers of the rules that they had comprehended to Wu Qing. However, Wu Qing rejected all of them. The reason for his rejection was also very straightforward. I only used the sword. Therefore, 4 talents with great potential like Wu Qing, Lu Wu was still willing to give them some big growth gift pack. Moreover, the investment in the early stage would definitely pay off in the future. This point could be taken as a reference for Ao Jian. When Ao Jian killed the 5 leaders of the Western underworld, Lu Wu earned a lot of soul coins and recovered all the initial investment. However, just as Lu Wu wanted to secretly sponsor Wu Qing, something happened that made him give up on this idea. Because someone had already taken a step ahead of him. At this moment, in the southern corner of Heaven River City, Wu Qing was walking slowly on the street. One could tell from his tightly furrowed brows that he was troubled at this moment. The reason for Wu Qing's annoyance was also very simple. It could be summed up in 2 words: lack of money. In fact, it was not that Wu Qing did not think of earning soul coins. For this reason, he had read many posts on the forum on how to earn money, such as fishing, sea hunting, and so on. However, at this moment, he was in Heaven River City. There was no sea nearby, and there were no monsters that he could hunt. It was completely a barren land, and the way to earn soul coins was 0. If he wanted to return to the main city of the Mansion of the Dead in Baiki, he would have to spend a teleportation fee of 5 soul coins. He was so poor that it was difficult for him to go home. This was his current situation. As he was wandering, a figure in the distance attracted his attention. This person was carrying 9 spiritual swords suspended in the air, and his body was filled with a strong sword will. This sword will even made the sword will of the Overlord sword that he had comprehended feel a strong sense of oppression. At this moment, the person in the distance seemed to have noticed him. He turned around and looked at him. Their eyes met, and both of them recognized each other. Ao Jian. Wu Qing. Long time no see. You've become stronger. Hearing this, Ao Jian was silent for a moment before he continued to speak. No wonder you're called the Sword Saint. It's only been a few days, and you've already grown to such a level. Sure enough, my talent is far inferior to yours. You don't hate me anymore? Hearing this, Wu Qing could not help but ask. Didn't I already tell you? I don't hate you. A hint of indifference appeared on Ao Jian's face. When he abandoned the mother and son, there was only cultivation and revenge in his heart. The sword in his hand was the only help he could achieve these goals. It could be said that he was completely obsessed with the sword at that time. But now, he had long looked down on the past grievances. His biggest hope was to be forgiven by Mo Lanlan and Mo Xiaoxin. Family was more important than anything else in his heart. He had already vowed in his heart that all his efforts in the future would be to protect the mother and son. P.S. Wu Qing and Ao Jian appeared at the same time in this book. For details, you can check out the battle on the mountain where Ao Jian first appeared. Wu Qing also appeared later in Chapter 173. At that time, Ao Jian had already obtained extraordinary power. At that time, he fought with Wu Qing again and chose to forgive Wu Qing. The specific reason for the hatred was that Ao Jian had killed his father. However, Wu Qing did it unintentionally and did not really want to kill him. Therefore, Wu Qing chose to spare Ao Jian's life several times after fighting with him. He even tried to persuade Ao Jian, who had become obsessed with the sword, to abandon it. Wu Qing's expression was complicated when he heard this. He had always felt guilty towards Aojian because he had accidentally killed Aojian's father in a sword duel with him. Therefore, he understood Aojian's mentality of becoming obsessed with the sword because of his strong desire to defeat him. He felt even more guilty about this. It could be said that 2 generations of Aojian had almost died in his hand. He had thought of making up for it, but Aojian did not listen to any words at that time. His heart only wanted to avenge his father. He wanted to cultivate the strongest sword technique and then defeat and kill himself. Although Aojian defeated him and chose to let him go during their last meeting, Wu Qing still realized that Aojian had taken the wrong path. He felt that if Aojian continued to cultivate like this, sooner or later, he would completely lose his feelings and become a person driven by the sword instead of the person controlling the sword. However, at this moment, when he saw Aojian again, he realized that his worries were unnecessary because Aojian had already embarked on a brand new path of swordsmanship. Moreover, he realized that Aojian was already very far away from him. The sword essence on Aojian's body was far from his own. They were not on the same level at all. Why are you still at level 0? At this time, Aojian suddenly asked. Hearing this, an awkward expression appeared on Wu Qing's face. Seeming to understand Wu Qing's situation, a smile appeared on Aojian's face. He then clicked on the trading panel, entered 10,000 soul coins, and clicked on the trade. Here are 10,000 soul coins, take it. What do you mean? Wu Qing frowned and asked. Nothing, I just hope that you can become stronger as soon as possible. Let's fight again. This challenge has nothing to do with our past grievances. I just want to see if the man who was once called the Sword Saint is already past his prime and can no longer hold a sword. When Wu Qing heard this, a trace of shock appeared on his face. However, gradually, his eyes lit up with the desire to fight. He had not had an opponent in the cultivation world for many years. However, at this moment, when he saw Aojian, the fighting spirit of his youth was once again ignited. When it came to swordsmanship, I am the king. At this moment, the overlord's sword essence in Wu Qing's body made a sword cry, as if responding to Aojian's challenge. Chapter 752. Before the war broke out, the players sped up the pace of improving their strength. The ancient gods who settled in Heaven Reverse City also learned to give public lectures through their contact with the players. They even had a curriculum and were gradually becoming more professional. Their teachings were of great help to the improvement of the players' strength. The ancient gods explained in detail the use of many spells and even the combination of battle formations, which really benefited the players a lot. These days lasted for 12 days. On this day, in the east of the western realm of the Netherworld, a beam of light fell from the sky. A huge hole was torn in the sky, and countless figures fell from the sky. The forces of the heavenly realm had finally arrived. After landing, countless members of the forces of the heavenly realm quickly set up defensive formations and began to set up strongholds. The war began at this moment. At this moment, all the gods of the netherworld felt the arrival of the forces of the heavenly realm. They tore the space apart and came to the western realm of the netherworld. The Tree Master and the others also knew that it was time for them to leave. Because they were the core forces of this war, they naturally could not stay in Heaven Reverse City any longer. At this moment, they said goodbye to the players and left one after another to meet the many gods of the netherworld who had come from different regions. At this moment, the figures of the 3 emperors of the netherworld also appeared in the western realm of the netherworld. The Emperor of Dongyu, the Emperor of Fengdu, and the Emperor of Yu. These 3 emperors of the netherworld never interfered with the development of the netherworld, but when the netherworld faced a crisis, they were the true pillars and the courage of all the gods of the netherworld to fight against the heavenly realm. At this moment, with the arrival of the forces of the heavenly realm, more and more gods of the netherworld gathered around the 3 emperors. Many of these gods of the netherworld used to be enemies and would fight for benefits, but in the face of righteousness, they let go of their past grievances. At this moment, they only had one enemy, and that was the heavenly realm. As more and more gods of the netherworld emerged, their momentum began to rise. It's been a long time since I tasted the blood of the gods of the heavenly realm. I can drink to my heart's content today. I wanted to practice the blood sacrifice technique, but I didn't have the best materials. Looks like I have them now. I've been waiting for this day for a long time. Back then, immortal Lord Qingmo from the heavenly realm killed my father. Let's settle the score. I don't care about winning or losing, and I won't give face to you, the Emperor. I just want to kill all the bastards of the heavenly realm. Roar. At this moment, the forces of the underworld began their attack. They would not wait for all the members of the Heaven Realm organizations to gather. This was not a turn-based game, but a real war. At this moment, taking advantage of the fact that the Heaven Realm's power had not fully arrived yet, the best choice was to strike first. Accompanied by the roars of the underworld gods, their figures suddenly descended near the Evil Spirit Mountain, which was also the area where the forces of the Heaven Realm had descended. At this moment, the power of law surged and countless spells crashed towards the Celestial Realm's defense array like waves. The Heaven Realm was already prepared for this a long time ago. Numerous formation barriers rose up and enveloped this part of the world in an attempt to block the attacks of the gods from the Nether Realm. East Peak, do you dare fight? At this moment, a huge Qilin head suddenly appeared in the sky, and then a huge figure crossed over. This person was the beginning. As one of the celestial emperors, Absolute Beginning's true form was that of a Qilin. At this moment, he completely revealed his true form, causing the space of the western netherworld to tremble violently. Hearing this, the great emperor of the East Mountains figure disappeared on the spot. Then, the huge figure disappeared at the same time. Boom! In just one move, the space in the east of the western Hell Realm exploded, and the world instantly turned into a pure black without any space. Not a single ray of light could penetrate this distorted space. At this moment, 3,000 chains of laws appeared, and with a slight tremble, the space in the east of the western Hell Realm was instantly repaired, and the world regained its color. Do you dare fight? At this moment, another voice came, and the figure of East Emperor Tai, who was surrounded by 10 prayer beads, also appeared at this moment. I'll keep you company. Yudu's hoarse voice resounded through the world. Then, he waved his hand, and a space covered forward, enveloping East Emperor Tai. The two of them disappeared just like that. Fengdu, it's our turn. At this moment, a figure with a 5-color jade in his left hand and a horsetail whisk in his right appeared in the sky. Hearing this person's question, Fengdu laughed loudly. Immortal Ku, let Tai come up. You're still not qualified, far from it. Although I lost to you in the battle back then, I'm no longer the same as before. I can defeat you, why don't you try? As he spoke, Immortal Ku didn't wait for Fengdu's agreement. With a wave of his horsetail whisk, a world was formed and forcefully enveloped Emperor Fengdu, intending to fight him. I'll grant you your wish. Emperor Fengdu didn't resist the descent of this power, and his face revealed a strong desire to fight. P.S. Immortal Ku, this person fought with Fengdu during the Great Battle of the Three Realms. His power is similar to Xitigarbha's in the Netherworld. They are both existences that far surpass Immortal Monarch, but haven't advanced to the Emperor realm. For the specific details, at the end of Chapter 399, the jade in his hand is the material used to revive the Empress. At this moment, the battle between the pinnacle began. Even though they weren't in the same space, the aura that leaked from the battle space occasionally caused the Western Hell Realm to tremble violently, as if it couldn't withstand the collision of their power. At this moment, the other ancient gods began to attack the barrier of the celestial realm with all their might. After being stifled for so long, the battle finally began, and many ancient gods completely erupted. 10 directions destruction. With the roar of an ancient god, the ground cracked, and countless magma spewed out from the cracks in the ground. The world turned red. Azura, an imposing figure that was thousands of meters tall, appeared with a roar. The huge body turned into a form with 3 heads and 6 arms, and incantations in the form of Azura appeared on its body. Tasteless, eyeless, speechless, and painless, this Azura body was formed under the tempering of these incantations. Its body was immortal, indestructible, and undefeatable. At this moment, the 6 arms instantly turned into phantoms and began to bombard the barrier of the heavenly realm. Birth! A fist print blasted out from the hands of the tree venerable, and it kept expanding as it moved forward. In the blink of an eye, it turned into an island and smashed down. Wilderness! At this moment, Chiunyo inserted his hands into the ground. With a furious roar, the area where the forces of the heavenly realm were located was uprooted by him, and the mountains were carried on his shoulders. Moo! With a cow's roar, Chiunyo stomped on the ground with his right leg and smashed the mountains above his head onto the ground with all his might. Suddenly, the barrier of the heavenly realm shook, and white light flickered, almost shattering. At this moment, an ancient god with his upper body naked raised the crimson battle axe in his hand. After twisting his body, he threw the sharp axe forward. Sky splitter! Boom! The barrier of the heavenly realm finally shattered, and the gods of the underworld immediately rushed in. At this moment, the gods of the heavenly realm inside also attacked. At this moment, they needed time to let more heavenly gods enter the underworld. This way, victory would be theirs sooner or later. The war had begun. Relying on their strong bodies, the ancient gods withstood the attacks of the gods of the heavenly realm and began to destroy the array beneath their feet. Array rise! At this moment, a new array appeared in the heavenly realm and once again enveloped this part of the world, separating the ancient gods who had entered from the outside world who had yet to enter. A total of 3 layers of barriers were formed. Azura, go and kill the people who set up the array. I will open a path for you. At this moment, 2 scorching flames spewed out from the nostrils of the ancient god Chiunyo, and then his body suddenly crashed forward. Relying on his powerful physical body, countless spells that landed on his body were instantly bounced off. Chiunyo continued to charge in the direction of the people who had set up the array formation. Seeing this, Azura immediately followed. 6 arms merged in front of his chest, and then thousands of arms grew from his back. The scene was shocking. Roar! Open! Accompanied by Chiunyo's angry roar, the 2 horns on his head suddenly pressed against the array barrier. Crack! In the face of this violent power that could shake the heavens and earth, the newly formed array instantly shattered, revealing the many gods of the heavenly realm inside. All of you die! At this moment, Azura arrived and thousands of arms pushed forward at the same time. Suddenly, a dark red light that was 100 meters thick landed in front of the members of the heavenly realm forces. Boom! Many of the members of the heavenly realm did not even have time to scream before they were turned into ashes. However, Azura did not have any intention of stopping his attack. He stared at the center of the array, at heavenly mystic celestial lord who was still struggling. Brat, I remember you. Back then, you killed many members of the heaven-defying alliance. It was very satisfying. Today, it's time for me to satisfy you. As Azura roared, he suddenly appeared behind heavenly mystic celestial lord. At this moment, thousands of arms fell at the same time. Heavenly mystic celestial lord immediately raised his hands, forming an energy barrier above his head. Boom! In the face of this power, heavenly mystic celestial lord felt his internal organs being shaken, and he could not help but spit out blood. Realizing that he could not fight Azura, heavenly mystic celestial lord immediately wanted to leave. However, Azura would not let him do as he wished. 1,000 arms crossed in front of his chest, and then pressed down. Boom! Heavenly mystic celestial lord's eyes and nose instantly bled, showing how much pressure he was under. At this moment, heavenly mystic celestial lord felt death approaching. Even if he tried his best to resist, it was difficult to resist the power that was slowly pressing down. Just as heavenly mystic celestial lord was about to be killed, a figure appeared next to Ahura. Then, a lotus appeared under Ahura's feet, suddenly bloomed, and firmly locked Ahura in place. Ahura, I'll fight you! The person who came was dressed in green, with a pink lotus under his feet. He held a short golden rod in his hand, and his face was full of fighting spirit. Old Witch Suwen, let your master come up and fight me. You're not worthy. Ahura roared angrily, stomped his feet, and shattered the lotus. He attacked heavenly mystic celestial lord again. I said, your opponent is me. The short rod in Su Wen's hand suddenly enlarged. In the blink of an eye, it collided with Ahura's body, smashing into Ahura's chest and sending him flying. Brother Nyo, I'll leave heavenly mystic celestial lord to you. I'll fight with this old witch. Ahura was furious. He leaped up from the ground and pounced at Suwon. Hearing this, Chunyo shook his head twice, and then slammed into heavenly mystic celestial lord. Before he got close, heavenly mystic celestial lord could already feel an unparalleled and violent power coming at him. It was so oppressive that he could not move an inch. Under this power, heavenly mystic celestial lord's body could not bear the burden, and cracks appeared on his divine body. Boom! When Chunyo appeared in front of him, the power descended. Heavenly mystic celestial lord felt that he had lost all sense of his body, and even his consciousness became blurry. He knew that he was dead. However, he soon realized that something was wrong. He was not dead, but was being held in Chunyo's hands. Looking at Chunyo's dark face, heavenly mystic celestial lord's face showed a trace of fear. Disciples, Master has a big gift for you. At this moment, Chunyo's lips curled into a smile. Then, he turned around and threw heavenly mystic celestial lord towards the west. At this moment, heavenly mystic celestial lord felt that everything in front of him had become blurry. When his vision became clear again, he realized that he was far away from the battlefield and had appeared in a city. And beside him, there was a group of creatures with evil smiles on their faces. At this moment, heavenly mystic celestial lord felt that something was wrong. However, with his divine body shattered, he no longer had any strength to resist. Chapter 753. The players were surprised by Chunyo's generous gift. A large number of players came after hearing the news and surrounded the dying heavenly mystic deity. At this moment, the players began to discuss the distribution of soul coins without any scruples. They did not take the dying heavenly mystic deity seriously at all. The players were already familiar with the heavenly mystic deity. The players of the European server, in particular, knew from the history books that the last His Excellency Tsangshu died because of the heavenly mystic deity. The heavenly mystic deity was also the one who wanted to snatch the Tai Ching rod from the Tree Master. As the person in charge of the Heavenly Policies Department, he was not the strongest, but he had committed many evil deeds against the human world and the underworld. Now that his divine body was broken and he had no strength to fight back, the players would not show any mercy. They would not let him die so easily either. After some discussion, the players finally decided to give the killing rights of the heavenly mystic deity to the players who joined the battle to help them grow quickly. After that, the newbie players began to form teams. If one of them managed to injure the heavenly mystic deity lord, the rest of the players in the team would have the right to kill the heavenly mystic deity lord and share the soul coins. This way they could speed up the killing process. After deciding on the division of interests, the new players lined up to punch and kick the heavenly mystic deity. Although their attacks were not powerful, they wanted the soul coins and everyone would get a share. He tui trash go to hell. Tui tui tui. How dare you stare at me? I'll kick your face. My kick will end your bloodline, "You piece of sh*t from the heavenly realm." The players began to torture the heavenly mystic deity both mentally and physically. The heavenly mystic deity was undoubtedly sullen, but he had no strength to fight back. He could only grit his teeth and endure it. He had already realized that if his comrades from the heavenly realm did not come to save him, he would only end up dead. Time passed, and half a day went by in a blink of an eye. Relying on the large team, the newbie players quickly inflicted injuries on the heavenly mystic immortal lord. However, the heavenly mystic deity was still not dead. Because the attack power of the new players was too weak, they could not easily kill him even if his divine body was broken and on the brink of death. In the end, it was the members of the wall hackers who finished the job. After a simple round of attacks, the heavenly mystic deity, the person in charge of the Heavenly Policies Department, died. At this moment, white light flickered continuously in Heaven Dual City. Tremendous soul power swept across the city. All the newbie players leveled up and received some soul coins as a reward. The overall strength of the players was enhanced once again. Just when the players thought it was over, the bodies of 3 celestial gods suddenly flew over from the east and crashed heavily into Heaven Reverse City. These Heaven Realm gods, without exception, were all in a state of near death. Their divine bodies were shattered, and the considerate ancient gods had even sealed their divine seals so that they could not resist at all. At this moment, the players were seething with excitement. Pies did not fall from the sky, but soul coins did. The players' frenzy of leveling up had begun. All the players were mobilized and began to farm soul coins. During this period, there would always be the bodies of celestial gods descending from the sky, and the players couldn't kill them all east of the western underworld, in the Evil Spirit Mountain Range. At this time, the battle between the gods of the heaven realm and the gods of the underworld had gradually reached its climax. The figures of the gods of the underworld kept increasing during this period, and so did the members of the heaven realm forces. At this moment, the figures of the members of the heaven realm forces kept appearing in the light pillar that connected the sky and the ground. Among them, there were many powerhouses in the divine state and immortal realm. At this point in the battle, the gods of the underworld could no longer have an absolute advantage. However, they still did not retreat. What they wanted was to take advantage of the situation to kill as many gods of the heaven realm as possible. This grievance that had been suppressed in the bottom of their hearts for a long time finally erupted at this moment. Although their comrades kept falling around them, they did not take a step back. They had been waiting for this moment for a long time. If not for the great emperors who stopped them, they would not have been willing to endure it. Under the desperate fight of the gods of the underworld, the casualties of the heaven realm were even more tragic. However, like the gods of the underworld, they did not take a step back. From now on, the 3 realms will be collectively known as the heaven realm. After this battle, the heaven realm will reign supreme. At this time, a dull voice came from the teleportation tunnel. Then, a 5-clawed golden dragon spiraled out, opened its mouth, and let out a dragon roar. Seeing this 5-clawed golden dragon, Azura, who was closer to him, had a solemn expression. "Ao Guang." At this time, Ao Guang cast a cold glance at Azura and waved his claws forward. Immediately, 2 golden claw marks flew towards Azura. Seeing this, Azura immediately waved his arm in an attempt to block the attack. However, the claw mark broke through the layers of obstruction and slammed into Azura's indestructible body, leaving 2 claw marks on his chest. Fresh blood flowed down from them. Meanwhile, Azura's figure was knocked down and sunk deep into the ground. Before Azura could stand up, Ao Guang opened his huge mouth and pounced towards Azura. "Leave this to me. Go and break the array." At this time, Chionyo appeared in front of Azura. "Moo!" Accompanied by a deafening bull roar, Chionyo's arms grabbed onto Ao Guang's huge mouth. His figure kept retreating under Ao Guang's attack. His legs pierced the ground, creating a trench. The moment his figure stopped retreating, Chunyo's right foot stomped on the ground. The ultimate law of force emitted a dazzling black light. As Chunyo turned around, Ao Guang was lifted up with both hands and smashed onto the ground. Moo! At this moment, Chunyo grabbed Ao Guang's neck with one hand, lifted him up, and smashed him onto the ground. The violent force slammed onto Ao Guang's body, making him feel as though his body was falling apart. The pain was unbearable. Chunyo was the strongest body cultivator in the underworld, second only to Xidagarba. Ao Guang knew that it would be suicidal to compete with him in close combat. He had to escape as soon as possible and use spells to shake Ao Guang. Thinking of this, Ao Guang opened his mouth again and spat out a golden dragon ball. Accompanied by a blinding golden light, the dragon ball drew an arc and hit Chunyo's chest. Instantly, the surging power of the dragon law exploded. The scalding dragon ball left a red mark on Chunyo's chest and continued to sink deeper. However, what Ao Guang did not expect was that Chunyo did not let go of him. He did not even take a step back. Enduring the pain, he stomped on the ground and lifted Ao Guang above his head. His left and right hands grabbed Ao Guang's dragon head and 7 inches. Moo! The sky-shaking bull roared. Chunyo's entire body surged with power. Accompanied by the emergence of the strength law, body law, undying law, and many other nomological powers, Chunyo's body suddenly doubled in size. At this moment, Ao Guang felt uneasy. He knew what Chunyo was going to do next. However, the Dragon Ball had left his body and his body's defense had dropped by nearly half. It was too late to dodge. Boom! The ground shattered inch by inch as Chunyo exerted his strength. Gotcha! Under Ao Guang's disbelieving gaze, his body was forcefully torn apart by Chunyo. Even his body could not withstand this force. At this moment, a huge hole appeared in Chunyo's chest and blood flowed out. However, Chunyo did not seem to care. It was as though the injury on his body did not exist. He raised Ao Guang's dragon head and let out a battle roar. Moo! Roar. All the underworld gods let out a deafening roar in response to Chunyo's battle roar. Seeing this scene, the aura of the underworld gods began to rise. Ao Guang was one of the most powerful immortal lords in the heaven realm. However, he was killed by Chunyo in a single move. All the heaven realm forces revealed a look of disbelief. Looking at Chunyo, their hearts could not help but tremble. The massacre continued. Under Chunyo's lead, the underworld gods fought with all their might, smashing the heaven realm's defensive barrier time and time again. The anger in their hearts was completely vented at this moment. At this moment, the underworld gods had already attacked the center of the heaven realm forces, which was also the region where the teleportation channel was located. Accompanied by Chunyo's roar, the underworld gods launched a desperate attack. All of you deserve to die. At this moment, accompanied by a deep roar, the heaven realm's passageway suddenly expanded. Following which, a green lotus flew out from it and flew across the battlefield, drawing a green line in the air. At this moment, the divine bodies of numerous gods from the netherworld were shattered by this green lotus, and their bodies exploded with a loud bang. At this moment, the green lotus suddenly retracted. Following which, a cold-looking figure holding the green lotus appeared on the battlefield. Seeing this person, the expressions of the underworld gods changed abruptly. The person who came was one of the heaven realm's 3 celestial emperors, Tai Shang. The underworld gods originally thought that Tai Shang was still in a state of serious injury and could not fight at all. Otherwise, they would not have sent Immortal Wither to fight Fengdu. But at this moment, he appeared, proving that their guess was wrong. At this time, Tai Shang threw the green lotus in his hand again. The green lotus flickered and passed through the bodies of hundreds of underworld gods. Except for a few ancient gods who could still withstand it, the rest of the underworld gods who were pierced by the green lotus exploded one after another. In front of Tai Shang's power, the immortal realm was like a piece of paper, and only the ancient gods could barely withstand it. At this moment, an ancient god holding a blood-red battle axe leaped from the ground and pounced at Tai Shang. Tai Shang, I will fight you. You? Not qualified. A trace of contempt appeared on Tai Shang's face, and then he waved his hand and pressed forward. Suddenly, countless green lotuses appeared in front of the ancient god. As they rotated, they stirred up the space. The ancient god's body was torn into countless pieces and scattered in all directions. Tai Wu. Seeing that the ancient god died in battle, the eyes of an ancient god who was also bare-chested and holding an ice-blue battle axe turned red. Roar. Tai Shang, I want you dead. At this moment, the ancient god leaped up and pounced at Tai Shang. However, his body had just leaped up when he was pulled back by a force from behind, and then he was thrown to the ground. Tai Gung, you are courting death. You can choose to die in battle, and I will not care about you, but I will not watch you die. Looking at Chunyo in front of him, Tai Gung's eyes were red and he clenched his teeth. Brother Nyo, he killed my brother. I know, so I hope that you will live and use your power to kill more gods in the heavenly realm instead of dying now. This is what Tai Shang wants to see. Our victory is the greatest revenge against the heavenly realm. Hearing this, Tai Gung took a deep breath and did not speak anymore. Instead, he took a step back, but the anger in his eyes did not fade at all. At this moment, Chunyo turned around and roared, all the gods of the underworld, listen to me. Retreat from this place. We can no longer destroy the teleportation channel. Staying here will only increase the casualties. Roar. Hearing this, all the gods of the underworld roared angrily. Their faces were full of anger, and they did not have the slightest intention of taking a step back. Moo. Hearing the silent protest of the gods, Chunyo let out a roar to the sky, suppressing their voices. Remember the key to our victory in this battle. We have endured for so many years, so what's the harm in waiting for a few more years? All of you, retreat. Looking at Chunyo, at this moment, even if the gods were unwilling, they also knew what Chunyo was referring to. Their hope of victory did not lie in themselves, but in the human race. This battle was just the beginning. They had to help the human race grow, and not waste all their combat power here. Now that Tai Shang had appeared, it was no longer realistic to destroy the teleportation channel. Retreating was the right choice. Retreat, listen to Brother Nyo. At this moment, Azura also spoke. The gods were silent and none of them moved. You want to leave? Have you asked for my permission? A cold light flashed in Tai Shang's eyes. Then, thousands of green lotuses bloomed in the sky, sprinkling down. All of you, retreat. At this moment, Chunyo stepped on the ground, lowered his head, and raised his hands. Lift the sky. Accompanied by Chunyo's roar, the green lotuses in the sky stopped falling in an instant, as if they were lifted by an invisible force. At this moment, Chunyo's power enveloped the space above, and he carried it on his shoulder. Seeing this scene, Tai Shang's expression changed. Chunyo's strength had truly shocked him. Chunyo was able to resist an entire space with just his physical body. Even he could not compare to Chunyo's physical strength. Among all the powers that he knew, only Tai Shang could defeat Chunyo. Moo. At this moment, Chunyo's body trembled, and his red eyes were bloodshot. He looked at the gods of the underworld and roared, Go! Hearing this, Tai Shang snorted coldly. Then, he waved his hands, and instantly, countless green lotuses appeared in the sky. At this moment, the gravity above Chunyo's head increased dramatically. Under the pressure of this force, he bent down and his body trembled. Moo! With a battle cry, Chunyo withstood the pressure and slowly straightened his back. Brother Nyo, I'm here to help you. At this moment, Azura's figure suddenly appeared beside Chunyo, wanting to share the burden with him. Take them away. Chunyo roared with a trembling voice. Then how are you going to escape? Old Nyo should have died during the War of the Three Realms. If not for that old man sealing me, I would not have continued living. I really King envy that bastard Xidigarba. It's finally my turn. At this moment, Azura could see a strong fighting spirit in Chunyo's eyes, as well as his determination to fight to the death. Brother Nyo. Azura's voice trembled. In order to cultivate the indestructible body, Azura had endured many hardships. However, these hardships had never shaken him in the slightest. However, at this moment, as he looked at Chunyo, who was holding up the sky with his strength, his heart could not help but tremble. At this moment, he really wanted to fight alongside Chunyo, even if it meant death. However, he knew that he could not do so, because Chunyo wanted him to lead the gods away. Roar! Azura raised his hand and pounded his chest. Then, his figure disappeared and appeared behind him. He tore the space with one hand and grabbed two ancient gods. He threw them into the space crack and shouted, "All of you, retreat!" Looking at Azura, who seemed to have gone mad, Venerable Tree and the others also moved at this moment. They also tore the space apart and grabbed the gods who were unwilling to retreat and threw them into the space tunnel. Seeing this scene, Taishang's face turned livid. He kept waving his hands, creating more green lotuses. At this moment, the weight of the space he was in kept increasing, but even though Chunyo's body was trembling, he had no intention of letting go. Kneel. Accompanied by Taishang's low roar, the green lotuses in the sky suddenly gathered together and turned into a huge green lotus. As it rotated, it gradually pressed down with the space. At this moment, Chunyo seemed to be carrying 100,000 mountains. His divine body even began to crack under the heavy pressure. However, he did not kneel down as Taishang had instructed. Instead, he once again resisted the heavy burden. He would rather his divine body collapse than yield. As the green lotus rotated, its strength continued to increase, and more cracks appeared on Chunyo's body. However, a smile appeared on Chunyo's face. At this moment, the gods of the underworld had already left. He had achieved his goal. At this moment, the green lotus above Chunyo's head emitted a dazzling green light. The entire space crashed down, and his divine body finally could not withstand the pressure and collapsed. At this moment, the players in Heaven Reverse City looked at the scene of Chunyo's death on the big screen in the square with grief and indignation. Although they had only interacted with Chunyo for a short time, many players had a deep impression of Chunyo. No one expected that this teacher, who looked simple and honest during lessons, would have such an unyielding will. His death caused the players to be unable to calm down for a long time. "Teacher Nyo, rest in peace." Someone was the first to shout. Immediately, the players in Heaven Reverse City roared in unison. Their hatred towards the Heaven Realm continued to deepen. At this moment, the violent vibrations in the distant space were slowly recovering. However, the final battle cry that Chunyo left behind for this world resounded in the sky once again. Moo! The roar resounded through the western underworld and the entire underworld. At this moment, a rain of blood fell from the sky. This world was sending off this ancient god with his strength. He held up the sky and the future of the underworld.